The terrifying dragon said that it was majestic because before him was the hero Eugene. He said that the Dark Lord Venomzard was striking his enemies with amazing ease. The Lord would undoubtedly become the strongest hero in history. Bleeding Man agreed with this. The dragon told Eugene that he did not look happy. The boy said that this was his grandfather's greatest wish. In order to become a Dark Lord and Conqueror, for this purpose alone, he burned himself from the inside. The dragon asked if the Lord had decided to end his life here in order to fulfill his grandfather's goal. Eugene remained silent, after which the dragon understood the guy's answer. He admitted that he was disappointed. He declared that the hero he had defeated would be his reward. The dragon said that before his death, the boy could ask for anything and he would fulfill any of his wishes. Eugene was surprised and asked what he was talking about. He said that his wish was a family. Suddenly, the space around him began to glow and a magic circle appeared under him. He exclaimed that it was unfair and that it was a forbidden move. He said that the dragon must have said it by accident. The monster said that it was a secret art. There was no way to go back, and there was definitely no way to take a break. Eugene asked what kind of art it was. The dragon said that the blood of the Dark Lord passed these abilities down from generation to generation. He looked at Eugene and said that this is a secret that is a mystery of nature. He turned to the hero Eugene and said that this is not just the life of someone who wants to fulfill his grandfather's wish. He said that the guy would get a new body, and his legend had been passed down for many years. This was the last thing the guy was able to hear. After some time spent in the dark, the boy opened his eyes and saw a man standing right above him. The unknown guy asked if his brother was okay. Eugene didn't understand what was going on. He didn't know who this guy was, and he didn't know who this guy was, and he didn't understand the meaning of this appeal. The maids came closer and asked if everything was okay, because they heard a noise. The guy said that his brother fell down the stairs. The girl said what a misfortune it was. Eugene stood up and asked where he was because there was a demon castle here. The guy said that his brother seemed to have hit his head. The maid said that a doctor would come soon. Eugene stood up and looked in the mirror. Seeing what was reflected there, the guy was genuinely shocked. He pulled at his cheek, wondering if this was a joke. A very small guy stood in front of him. Eugene wondered if it was possible that he had returned to his youth, but he quickly realized that this was not the case, because the color of his hair and eyes was different. He had been reborn. After some time, the guy came to breakfast, where a huge table stood in front of him. He was surprised that everything had somehow increased in size since the morning. The boy realized that it was Julius von Carlyle. His new home, life, and also a new family. The father of his family noticed that Gaius had again received a perfect score on the test. Mother said he was the best he had ever been, and she was proud of him too. Gaius, Eugene's new brother, said it was a completely normal thing and not something to be happy about all the time. The boy noticed that his new father, mother, and younger brother were sitting at the table with him. He kept thinking about what to do. Eugene, being a baby, immediately reincarnated, and at some point the consciousness and ego were erased, and his were automatically installed in its place. This was the guy's assumption. He thought it was very strange because he remembered nothing at all before his 15th birthday. He decided that the first thing he would do was to look around. The parents praised Gaius, saying that he was the pride of their family. Suddenly, the father turned around and spoke sternly about the boy's older brother, Julius. He asked how the boy could fall down the stairs this morning for no reason. Julius tried to say something, but he couldn't. The father said that the boy's teacher had said yesterday that with such results he wouldn't be able to finish school. He asked if Julius realized how ashamed he was. He sighed and said that the guy was pathetic. He said that he felt sick even breathing the same air as Julius. He called the boy a disgrace to their family. Julius wondered if he was really his father because he did not understand how one could say such a thing to one's child. He thought that Julius was a very pathetic person. Gaius stood up abruptly and said that he was disgusted to listen to them. The parents asked what was the matter because they were thinking about him. Julius was glad that his younger brother was standing up for him. Suddenly, Gaius said that he didn't have any older brother and he wanted to be an only child. Julius was shocked to find his existence completely ignored. Gaius said he was leaving for school. Julius asked him to wait so they could go together. Suddenly, Gaius said that he did not want to go with him, so he should go in another cart. Julius thought that this was cruel. After some time, he was already riding in a carriage to school. He thought that now this was his new family. But they didn't love him at all here. After some time, he already came to the royal school Ein. Julius was 15 years old, and he had a twin brother with whom he attends the same school, and they know him there as a clumsy gaper. Well, this school is a completely expected place, just like all school life. Suddenly, the boy heard someone laughing in the backyard. The bullies were asking the boy if he brought money. They said that before getting hit, he should empty all his pockets. The guy was shocked that Julius was constantly getting hit by these guys. The hooligans asked him what he was saying. After that, they said that they didn't care what he said, but he needed to empty his pockets, as usual, before he started crying. Julius was feeling sorry for himself, wondering if this happened all the time. Suddenly, he saw Gaius passing by. The boy shouted to his brother that he was here. The hooligans were afraid that he was asking for help. Gaius looked at the boy, then turned away and left. The hooligans began to laugh at the fact that his own brother ignored him and left. Julius could not believe that Gaius saw his older brother being robbed and ignored him. Julius was clearly not liked in this place. The boy tried to hit Julius, wanting to get money. At that moment, the guy used strengthening magic. The boy's kulan collided with the guy's head, but nothing happened. After that, the bully screamed loudly in pain and said that Julius was very hard. The other bullies asked what he was doing. Julius said that he thought that if he was hit, it would hurt, so he used strengthening magic. The hooligans shouted at him not to lie to them, because he had zero magic and was not capable of using magic of such a high level. Julius asked them to calm down. The hooligan swung again and said that he would not forgive him for this and would kill him. Suddenly, Julius raised his hand in front of him. He said that he had just been reborn into this world, so he would not let him kill him. After that, he hit the guy. The hooligan flew far back. The others turned around in amazement, not understanding how this was possible because he should have figured it out easily. They started asking for help because the monster wanted to kill them. Julius said that they were originally going to kill him. He walked up to the one he had hit and said that he would have to heal him. He quickly cast a spell. The bully was surprised that the pain began to go away. They asked what Julius did. The guy answered that he used healing magic. The bully asked if Julius really thought they were that stupid, since even first-class magicians did not have such magical power. The guy said that even the kid from the neighboring house could use it. The bully exclaimed again that it was impossible. After that, they all ran away screaming for help. Julius asked where the gratitude was for healing that guy. He thought they were strange. Both strengthening and healing were entry-level magic, but they were so surprised. He thought this world might be different from his home world. Was he in his own time or was this a parallel world? His magic remained unchanged. But perhaps he should not use his highest magic in front of everyone. At this time, Gaius was calmly walking through the school. Everyone who saw him greeted him and praised the guy. At the same time, when they saw Julius, they called him a loser. They also said that he was an unpleasant type. The boy felt uncomfortable. When the bell rang and Julius walked into class, others looked at him and said that he was strange today. The boy realized that Julius had no friends at school, but it didn't seem like he was separated from the class. Suddenly, someone turned to the boy. The girl awkwardly said that Julius was sitting in her place. Her hair was covering her face. The guy stood up and apologized. Due to memory loss, he had mixed up the seats. The girl said that everything was fine. The guy introduced himself and asked her to be his friend, since she had just arrived. The girl was very surprised. Julius asked if she really didn't want to be friends with him. The girl blushed and said that it wasn't so. She was just an outcast, and all her classmates didn't recognize her. Julius asked why, because she was very sweet. He said that he couldn't even believe it. The girl blushed deeply. After that, the teacher came into the room and said that they were starting the lesson. As a result, the boys sat down together. The girl continued to look at Julius because it was the first time she had been told something like that. The teacher said that in the first lesson, they would learn about a legend that was 2,000 years old. The legend of the magician Eugene. Hearing this, Julius jumped up and asked if 2,000 years had really passed. Suddenly, he realized what he had done and felt embarrassed. The teacher asked Julius why he had shouted so loudly. The boy said that it was nothing special, after which he sat back down awkwardly. He realized what world he had been reborn in. Julius was shocked that 2,000 years had passed since he had defeated the demon. In the second lesson, another teacher said that they would practice magic. Today they measured magical power. He said that they all already knew about the crystal that measured magical power. They would put their hand to it and it would determine and show their inner magic. Julius thought that such a crystal had existed in the past. The teacher said that they should begin measuring. The one whose name he calls will come out to the ball. The first student stepped forward, and the teacher said he could begin. After he poured magic into the ball, the number 15 appeared at the top. Julius was surprised that the boy had so little strength. In the old days, this figure at 15 years old reached 4 digits. He thought that with such difficulty and low number, the guy could be expelled. Suddenly, the teacher praised the guy and said that he passed. Julius thought in shock. Could this really be the passage? He wondered if this was really normal and if the crystal was damaged. The people behind Julius asked what kind of damage there could be because the indicator of magical power is almost always equal to age. Therefore, for them, this was a passing grade. Many people scored very low after that. There was a person who scored 21 points, but that wasn't very good either. Julius thought that the man was only above 20 and everyone admired him. He did not understand what was wrong with his world. In the old days, even a baby like him had this indicator. After Eugene was born, his magic was equal to 100. Next, the teacher called Julius von Carlyle, Julius's brother. The boy stepped forward. People said that he was the strongest of the Carlyles. They were interested in Gaius's result. Julius was also curious about what score his younger brother would get. After Gaius used his power, a bright flash of light appeared and the screen showed the number 50. Proud Gaius went on, while others shouted that this was 3 times the average, and Gaius was a genius. Julius sighed when he heard this. The teacher called Julius von Carlyle next. The boy stepped forward. At this time, others were whispering that they felt sorry for this loser because he had 0 magical power, and it was strange to have such an older brother. Julius didn't know what to do because he was a former hero. Suddenly, Gaius approached him and told the boy to drop out of school and give up these senseless undertakings. Julius realized that no matter what he did, his family, classmates, and younger brother hated him. Suddenly, he remembered something. He remembered that lonely side. The old man coughed and said that he didn't have long left. He asked Eugene not to be like him. The boy asked what his grandfather was talking about. The old man said that all he could do was apologize to him because he had caused so much trouble. Eugene's grandfather was a hero. He was the strongest and most noble hero of all time, but unfortunately, he lost to the demon lord, the Venomzard. People despair and renounce heroes who could not subdue the demon. Expelled from the city, he was left alone, disgraced and lonely, quietly living his life in the remote mountains. But even in such a situation, he took good care of him, a boy who lost his parents in a catastrophe. After all this, Eugene fulfilled his grandfather's cherished wish. The old man told Eugene to live his life peacefully. He wanted the boy to live a normal life, create a new family, and become happy. Eugene thought he had found a new family in the new world. But his brother was so self-confident, he looked like he was looking down on him. Angelis. Julius decided that as an older brother, he wanted to show all his seriousness. After that, he used magic training. A glow appeared around him. People were shocked because even Julius's body was glowing. They had never seen such powers before. This world is more than 2,000 years old. Apparently, it is a world where magical technology has deteriorated compared to the original world. Nobody knows this. A special method of breathing that absorbs and transforms the magical elements that fill the atmosphere is magical training. People were amazed and asked what was going on. The guy wondered what reincarnation the Demon King had sent him to. While he was using his powers, he looked at Gaius, who was shocked. He thought he was able to do this in front of his new brother. He amazed everyone. After that, a loud explosion was heard in the room. No one could believe that Julius had broken the magic measuring board. The guy came out of the smoke and said that he had overdone it. The device exploded, although he was in control of himself. Unfortunately, Julius did not see his number. He was wondering what to do because the device was broken. Gaius did not believe that his brother, who had no magical powers, had the power to blow up the measuring board. It was impossible to believe. Julius turned to Gaius and asked him how he felt about it. He raised his hand and declared that this was his true power. Gaius was amazed. During the next lesson, the teacher asked if anyone could answer what kind of magic circle he had drawn on the board. Julius hoped that the teacher would not ask him, but it was the boy who was asked. Classmates began to laugh and say that their Julius was not capable of solving such difficult questions, and it was extremely difficult for him. Now the boy's name is Julius von Carlyle, reborn by the secret art of the Dark Lord's magic. The guy stood up and said that it was a normal, very simple fireball for beginners. He asked if that was an appropriate answer. Everyone was surprised that it was correct, because even the others did not know the answer to this question. Julius was reborn in the world after 2,000 years, and he had a feeling that the level of magic had decreased now. Julius went to the board and told the teacher that, to begin with, there was a lot of unnecessary stuff drawn on the magic circle. He erased it and started drawing anew. Along the way, he explained what he was adding and removing. After the magic circle was already drawn on the board, Julius said that it was easy. The students began to doubt, saying that they had never seen anything like it before. They asked if he really wanted to rewrite the textbook or disrupt the lesson, did not understand how he managed to remove the lines and strengthen the magic circle 3 times. He said that he brought the circle to maximum power, and it was possible to reduce the expended energy by 10 times. He asked where Julius got such knowledge. The boy said it was easy as pie. His classmates shouted that Julius couldn't know that. At the same time, Gaius was nervous, not understanding what was happening to Julius. He broke a pencil while thinking about it. After class, Julius walked around the on-royal academy. He yawned while saying that despite being reborn, he still wanted to sleep after lunch. Julius entered the room where the next lesson was supposed to be. But to his surprise, he saw an unusual picture. A crowd of students gathered in one place, causing a noise. Julius asked why it was so loud in the classroom. As it turned out, Julius's new girlfriend was cornered and laughed at for her long hair, calling it disgusting. One of the girls who was nearby laughed at the fact that the girl's hair covered her ears. They said that her hair looked terrible. Suddenly, one of the girls asked why they didn't cut her hair. She took the scissors and began to approach the girl. The victim, cornered, asked them to stop, but they said that they were trying for her sake. She grabbed the girl by the hair and said that they would get rid of the hair with their own hands and throw it away. The girl screamed that it hurt. The hooligan was going to check if the girl was really half-elf. They wanted to shave her head and reveal her long ears to the world. The girl screamed for help. Seeing this, Julius took a deep breath. Suddenly the girl disappeared from the hooligan's grip. Julius appeared behind the girl, holding his girlfriend in his arms. He said that he could no longer see anything because he had been busy since the morning. The hooligan saw Julius and asked what he was doing, since she hadn't even had time to look. Holding scissors in his hands, Julius said that it was dangerous for a girl to walk around with such things. The bully looked at her hands completely confused when he took the scissors. He said that he did it before he realized because he thought he was running slowly. Due to current physical capabilities, the speed has dropped by 10 seconds. Apparently, the reborn body is not ready. The bully asked what kind of noise they were making, after which she said that bangs were prohibited by school rules. Julius said that he would give his friend a nice haircut. Holding the scissors in his hands, Julius asked if it had gotten better. The girl agreed, after which she tried to say something, but the guy got ahead of her. Using scissors, he quickly cut off most of his girlfriend's hair. It quickly fell to the floor. The girl asked what happened. Julius said that it came out well. The new haircut made the girl appear completely different. The bullies said it was violence, while other classmates said she was very cute and it was just adorable. Julius turned to the bully and asked if she had any complaints. The girl turned to Julius and tried to say something, but the guy said that she should believe in herself more so, that all their classmates knew their place. The girl said that her name was Eliza, after which she thanked the guy for saving her. She thought that she liked it. The guy smiled and said that it was not difficult. Half-elves have always been subjected to ridicule. Even after 2,000 years, nothing has changed. At the next lesson, the teacher said that they would measure the strength of magical abilities. If a student shot a scarecrow, the power of magic would be read immediately by the force of the blow. If the target fails to be broken, the student should not worry, but calmly attack again. Julius noted that it was not at all like before, but it was still interesting. The teacher asked who would be first when suddenly someone shouted the name of Gaius. At this time, the boy and the girl were hugging. The girl said that she loved Gaius as much as always. She asked him why he was always so beautiful, since there was no comparison with his bland brother. The girl said that she loved him. Gaius also said that he loved a girl, Historia. While everyone watched silently, the young couple kissed. Julius was shocked that they were doing this in class. The teacher was at a loss. At this time, the students said that these two looked impressive, like Ika. So much so that even the teacher was distracted from his conversation. Julius looked at this and thought that Gaius liked girls like Aya. Suddenly, Historia noticed Julius and said that he was jealous. Gaius grinned and said that he was popular with the girls. After which he asked his brother if he had any complaints. Julius was a little confused, after which he said that he had no complaints and that the matter was different. After that, he fell silent and asked her who this Eacher was that they were talking about. He asked if his brother had anything to do with it. Eliza asked her friend what he was talking about. She explained that this was his girlfriend Historia, who was the 8th princess of their state. She was very popular in aristocratic circles. She also added that the princess was not Julius's wife. The guy was confused. He apologized and said that he had completely forgotten. Eliza asked how one could forget something like that. He thought that it was definitely not him, so he wondered what he and Gaius had in common. Suddenly, Historia turned to Julius, calling him insipid. The princess asked why they, the ugly girl and the loser, were looking at her so intently. Eliza immediately began to apologize, while Julius asked what it meant. Julius calmly said that Eliza would be more beautiful than the princess. He said that since she is also a half-elf, she also has cute ears, and asked Julius what he was saying. She also said that she was nevertheless happy to hear it. Historia got angry and asked what he said. The guy said that since they were engaged, it didn't mean they should kiss in front of everyone. Historia asked what Julius was talking about. She said that it was the parents who chose such a self-willed daughter-in-law, and everyone knew that she was Gaius's faithful wife. Historia declared that Julius, a bland boy, could only pray for such a beautiful marriage. Gaius agreed. The other students started laughing, saying that things seemed bad for Julius. They felt sorry for him because Historia had cheated on him with his younger brother, and that was a shame. Julius realized that the girl had chosen Gaius instead of him. Julius sighed calmly and said it was nice to meet him. Historia asked in shock what that meant, while Gaius asked his brother if he was in his right mind. He asked his brother what he was thinking when he fought her off. He said that she was his older brother's fiancée, and he didn't understand why they hadn't even quarreled. Historia asked what was going on because Julius knew that he and Gaius had mutual love, and he himself blessed them. Julius laughed and told Eliza that it was quite cute. Suddenly, Historia noticed something unusual. An angry Gaius asked how long this would go on. The girl tensed up. Suddenly, the teacher asked what they were doing right during class. Historia smirked and asked the teacher what she had to do in class. She asked if she understood correctly that she had to use magic to measure magical power. After that, she pointed at Julius and asked if she could aim at him. The guy was surprised by this. The teacher said that since they were asking, they would see who would win and who would lose. If someone lost consciousness, they would automatically lose the competition and the contest would end. Julius sighed heavily, then said that this was a dimension of magical power, and to be honest, he had no reason to fight with history. In response to this, the girl loudly exclaimed for the guy to be quiet. She stated that he was already beginning to irritate her. Historia said that she hoped that was reason enough. She called Julius a quiet and well-behaved boy. Julius sighed again, thinking about how spoiled Historia was. At this time, the girl was thinking about how she would embarrass Julius in front of Gaius. She was going to beat the guy up and her boyfriend would watch and be proud of her. She waved to Gaius and said she was there. The boy didn't answer her. Suddenly, the teacher exclaimed that their duel was beginning. Historia picked up a small crystal and said that first Julius should keep his threats to himself and resign himself. She threw the stone into the air and said that she was calling upon the strongest and invisible. The crystal shone in the air, which attracted Julius's attention. The spectators shouted that this was impossible because they did not understand how it was possible to summon him so easily. Many magic circles appear in the air from which a monster of enormous size quickly emerges. Was speechless watching this. At the same time, Gaius began to quietly laugh at what was about to happen. Quite quickly, the monster completely got out of the magic circle and stepped onto the ground. At that moment, Historia began to tell about how this monster has been the protector of her family for many centuries. This monster was a level 30 salamander. The monster began to breathe fire. The hall was filled with the cries of distant people. They couldn't believe that a level 30 monster was standing in front of them. The hall decided that Historia was seriously planning to kill Julius. At the same time, Julius calmly watched what was happening right in front of him. Historia smirked and ordered Salamander to attack Julius. The monster began to create a huge magic ball in its mouth. After that, it attacked Julius with concentrated magical energy. Eliza called out Julius's name in concern as the teacher yelled at Princess Historia that they were not allowed to kill in this place. The girl laughed and said that she didn't know about it at all, and in fact it was that weak guy's fault. As the fire continued to burn on the ground, Historia asked Julius how Salamander's hellfire tasted to him. Afterwards, she sighed and said that it was a shame that the boy couldn't answer her. Historia screamed again about Julius making her angry. She ordered him to apologize and quickly before he turned to coal. Suddenly, a figure began to appear from the huge cloud of smoke. Julius calmly came out of the cloud and cleared his throat, saying that this dragon had sprayed a lot of smoke. The amazed princess watched as the guy calmly emerged from the dust and thought that this was simply impossible. Suddenly, Julius calmly stated that even a novice hero could handle such a low-level flame. Historia screamed that such a thing couldn't be true, since this dragon was level 30. Julius thought that the hero's status was high enough, even if it was a level 30 monster. The boy asked the girl if she wanted more. Historia stated that she had unconsciously made a decision based on past experience, and so she ordered Salamander to use a truly lethal blow. The teacher, who saw all this, could only shout that this was the reason why killing was forbidden. Salamander released many concentrated spheres. Without even moving his legs, Julius calmly dodged each ball, remaining in the same place. Historia, amazed, asked how this guy moved. The audience was no less amazed. They loudly asked how Julius even did these movements. There were many questions. Julius smiled sweetly and said that it was quite easy to understand the strategy of how the monster moved. People still did not understand Julius and asked how the guy did it. After the monster finally ran out of steam, the people in the hall began to ask if it was really the end, and if Julius had actually been able to withstand the fire attack. Historia sighed heavily, deciding to take the last path. She bit her finger and said that she would do everything with her own hands. The girl ordered Salamander to fly up, after which the monster calmly jumps straight at Julius. The girl ordered her dragon to crush Julius. In an instant, the monster landed right on the spot where Julius had recently stood. The entire earth around began to quickly crack and collapse. The audience screamed that Julius was now definitely dead. Looking at this, Eliza only screamed loudly, fearing for her friend. Historia smiled widely and said that now it was definitely the end, and there was probably nothing left of Julius. Suddenly, from under the monster, a guy's voice came out, apologizing for the fact that he seemed to still be quite intact. Hearing Julius, Historia was speechless. While everyone was shocked and asking how this was possible, Julius was holding the huge monster with just one hand. The salamander was right above the guy while Julius was standing on the ground. Historia couldn't understand how it could be so simple. At the same time, Eliza was amazed, and Gaius didn't believe that his brother was capable of such a thing. The spectators shouted that this was impossible because how could one lift the salamander? No one understood what had happened right in front of them. Julius calmly replied that he was only using his body's aura. Aura is a generous gift within the body that is full of natural energy. It is the aura that fills a person with enormous power, which is equal to several bombs, a truly wonderful instrument inside a person. Historia exclaimed that she was hearing about this for the first time. Julius did not understand whether this girl was serious. Julius told Historia that he was returning the princess's pet. Immediately after these words, he threw Salamander right at the girl who did not even have time to understand what he said. The monster fell in front of Historia. The frightened girl screamed loudly as the ground in front of her began to crack due to the monster's weight. Historia tried to cover herself with her hands, but she failed and was thrown off the ground straight into the air. Julius quickly moved closer to the girl who was in trouble and caught her in his arms so that she would not fall. The guy smiled sweetly and asked Historia if everything was okay. Seeing this, the princess blushed deeply, which is why she was unable to answer him. Noticing this, Eliza felt uncomfortable and sighed heavily. At this time, Historia began to scream, asking Julius how long he would hold her. She ordered the guy to quickly let her go. At the same time, the offended Julius shouted that he, by the way, saved the girl. People in the hall began to doubt whether this was really the same fallen brother of Gaius. They looked at him and said that he was really good. Two guys were sitting together. One of them laughed and said that Gaius would not get lost in the background of such a strong Julius. His friend hit him on the shoulder and told him to stop saying such things. The guy turned around and asked what was wrong, still laughing. Suddenly he saw Gaius, from whom came a strong and heavy energy of anger and resentment. The guy silently watched what was happening in the arena. After some time, the school was quiet again. In one of the corridors of the academy, Gaius and Historia were talking. The guy smiled sweetly and told the princess that from that day on they were breaking up. The amazed girl did not believe what she heard and asked what he was talking about, asked him why he was saying that and what she had done wrong. Gaius calmly said that it was true that they had not been together long, but they had been good together. Historia tried to stop him again. Julius, who was just passing by, accidentally caught this quarrel. The guy asked Gaius why they were making such a noise. Gaius almost answered him, but Historia ordered the guy to shut up, because it was none of his business, and he had better move on. Stern Gaius quietly said that he had been through a lot with Historia, and now they were parting. Julius asked in surprise what his brother was talking about. He said that he had not expected this at all, because until recently they had been so close. Historia exclaimed that he should not say that. She told Gaius not to call him brother, but trash. Julius was surprised. Gaius, who was about to leave, slowly turned around and asked what his brother was talking about. With a complicated expression, he said that Historia had been Julius's fiancée from the very beginning. The guy was surprised, after which he smiled broadly and said that his relationship with his beloved brother was much more important to him than some marriage and a bride. Historia turned pale when she heard these cruel words. She did not believe what Julius had just said. The girl screams that Julius had ruined their engagement, and his father would simply kill the guy for such a thing. She said that the guy used to be very afraid of Gaius, and a real man can forgive a woman all her mockery with laughter. She grabbed Julius by the shoulders, not letting him go. The guy said that even if she didn't care about him, she could just ignore him. Historia said that wouldn't work, and Julius couldn't do that. She exclaimed that her master had spoken of the child of the prophecy. At that moment, Julius realized something important. He scratched his head and asked what this could mean and who the child of the prophecy was. The guy said that he heard about it from both Historia and his brother. Suddenly, Historia pointed behind Julius and asked what was there. The guy immediately turned around. Suddenly, Historia grabbed Julius by the leg and began to apologize, saying that he looked great and was not a scumbag at all. She asked the guy not to ruin her relationship with Gaius, because she is the 8th princess of the Ain family. She stated that it was Julius's duty to support her. The guy looked at the girl dejectedly, trying to get out of her grip. Julius sighed very heavily, thinking that even after reincarnation he would definitely have some problems. At this time, Gaius walked quickly through the school, holding back his anger. He almost ran down the corridor in heavy silence. Suddenly, he hit the wall with his fist, breaking everything around him. Veins appeared on his forehead and face, coming out from rage. The guy exclaimed that he would not leave it like this. The next day morning came at the Carlyle estate. Julius, who had been sleeping peacefully, finally woke up. He stretched and said that the hero had slept quite well today. He went out onto the balcony of his room and yawned widely, wondering if it was really still not dawn. Suddenly, he heard something unusual. In the courtyard, he heard the scraping of metal that occurred when two swords touched. The guy became interested in what was happening below. At this time, in the courtyard, a certain man from the Carlyle family was training with Gaius. He praised the boy, saying that in recent days, he did not recognize the young master's swordsmanship at all. He exclaimed that Gaius was very talented, but he always had something to learn further. Gaius held the sword in his hand, breathing heavily. He thanked the man for his kind words. Once Julius realized what was going on, he smiled widely and noticed that his beloved younger brother Gaius was there in the yard. He thought it was very impressive that he was training at such an early hour. At this time, the man shouted at Gaius that the boy was much better than his mediocre brother, and the day was not far off when he would become a master like him. He shouted at Gaius to work even harder and more diligently. Suddenly, Julius wondered who this man was because he had so many useless techniques, and he also had no fighting spirit or physical strength. He did not understand at all what this man was doing. Julius wondered if this could be a friendly duel while Gaius developed his own strength. He quickly jumped off the balcony wanting to help his brother. Using his magical powers, he enveloped himself in energy, allowing him to land on the ground very easily and smoothly. As soon as his feet touched the ground, he magically picked up a neat towel and told his brother to take it. Gaius continued to breathe heavily and agree. As soon as the towel was on his head, Julius said that the guy had tried hard. Gaius was very surprised, and asked his brother in surprise how long he had been in this place. Julius asked if Gaius had really been there since the morning. He said that it was very good that he liked to improve his skills. Julius smiled and added that he wanted to say that instead of these entertainments, he could help Gaius and teach him the art of the sword. He pointed to the man who trained Gaius and said that he could teach him too if he wanted it, of course. The man was amazed by these words. He was deeply offended that Julius was going to teach him because he is a warrior of the royal family. Especially, he was going to teach him the art of the sword. Gaius exclaimed, asking why his brother was so impolite. He asked if Julius didn't know who it was. The boy said he could tell by his ridiculous fighting style. He asked if the man was the neighbor's uncle. The man was even more insulted. Not only was his fighting style called ridiculous, but he himself was called an ordinary neighbor uncle. He took out his sword and told Julius that he would teach this boy subordination. He declared that he was a knight, and Julius would pay right now for daring to offend his sacred honor. Gaius turned around and asked his teacher to calm down. At this time, the man was already flying at Julius with a weapon. He exclaimed that he simply could not forgive such an insult. Julius wondered if this was all happening seriously. He was completely calm. Gaius's teacher began to strike directly at Julius. But the boy quickly and accurately dodged each attack of the ridiculous knight, laughing at the situation along the way. Gaius could only stare in amazement at what was happening. He thought that it was simply impossible to dodge the sword of a true master. Julius smiled and said that this knight was so slow that he already wanted to yawn. He stated that Gaius had better find a teacher with good knowledge of his business to teach him. At this time, the knight continued his feeble attempts to hit the guy, who was so quickly dodging his weapon. Julius decided to respond to the old man with an attack. He brought his hands to the sword, after which he said for the black magic to be revived. The teacher looked at what Julius was doing in amazement. After these actions, a bright flash suddenly appeared in the air. Julius held back the attack of the man who tried to hit the boy again. Due to the strength of both swordsmen, everything around was shining. Gaius was holding on to the ground with great difficulty. The guy tried to stay in place, but his body was already close to simply not being able to stay on the ground. Suddenly, the end of one of the swords broke off, after which it quickly fell to the ground, cutting into the soil with its blade. Julius held his sword and stood, while the teacher lay on the ground and half of his weapon was behind Julius. His sword was broken. The shocked man looked at the hilt of his sword, not understanding at all how this happened. At the same time, Gaius could finally catch his breath. He said with heaviness that his body was now in terrible pain. He thought that the sword was shining so brightly, and his teachers were able to push him away for the first time. He did not understand what had happened to his brother. Julius threw his sword over his shoulder and exhaled. He asked Gaius what he was talking about, because it was a very common attack reflex. The teacher jumped up and asked what other attack reflex because the fencing textbook didn't say anything about it. He exclaimed that this phenomenon is generally considered one of the most important mysteries. Julius asked what kind of nonsense this man was talking about, because this is the basis of fencing. Julius thought about how both swordsmanship and magic techniques had deteriorated in this world over the past 2,000 years. Gaius really didn't understand how his brother had mastered the sword so well. Julius wondered if this magic attack had been created now. The teacher looked at his broken sword in amazement and said that this could not be. He said that it was the oldest and most durable sword that had been passed down from generation to generation in his family. This sword was simply impossible to break. Julius was surprised that he had broken such a valuable sword. The boy apologized to the teacher and began to collect magical power in the form of a sword. He said that he would now restore this sword, after which he used the magic of creation. Hearing about this, the teacher was even more amazed. He had never heard of the magic of creation and did not understand how this was possible. Suddenly, Julius gave the same sword to the teacher, who spoke about how stupid this situation was because he restored the blade so easily. Gaius, who had observed what had happened, asked how this was possible. The boy turned to Julius and said that it was all very strange. Julius asked if his brother was talking about how he had suddenly changed. Somewhat fearfully, Gaius said that it was like a completely different person, because his brother simply could not be such a strong person. Julius didn't know what to say to him. He knew for sure that Gaius simply wouldn't believe that he was the hero Eugene, who had been reborn in the body of his older brother. Julius turned to Gaius and asked him to have breakfast together. He said that he hated pancakes, but they could think of something about it. Gaius shouted loudly, telling Julius to shut up. He said that he did not want to see his brother. Full of rage, Gaius turned around and said that he would never admit that Julius was his older brother. After that, he quickly left. Julius looked at him silently. After that, he sighed and said that Gaius was behaving inappropriately for a younger brother. After some time, Julius was at the academy. The teacher said that today's lessons would be lectures on the summoning of a magical servant. Julius asked in surprise what kind of servant. Eliza said that even in the first year, students perform a ritual to summon monsters that will be their familiars. Julius was surprised. He wondered if they really called this a program for school children. Julius had never been a student before, so he didn't know anything about it. Suddenly, the guy asked Eliza if she knew how cute she was. The girl became embarrassed and said that it was not so. The teacher began to tell that a monster would come to the students that would correspond to the students' potential. In other words, they would test the degree of their strength. The familiar is a complete reflection of the student's internal mechanisms. The teacher said that summoning a familiar is done by placing inner power into a magic circle. Julius thought that this did not happen 2,000 years ago. The teacher told the first volunteer to come to the circle. Immediately after that, some student came forward. Julius was interested in what would happen because the student entered the magic circle alone. After the young guy began to release his magic into the circle, a bright flash appeared. Suddenly, a level 15 white wolf appeared from the circle. The teacher assessed the monster and said that this was a good result, so the guy passed. Julius was surprised at such a low level. He began to worry about what would happen to him. He assumed that his internal magical power had greatly decreased. Suddenly, someone called out to the teacher. The boy stepped forward and asked if he could be next. It was Gaius. Noticing him, the students started shouting that something interesting was about to happen. They wondered what he was thinking about when he walked there alone. Suddenly, Gaius turned around and looked at Julius. The stern guy told his brother not to look at him. Julius smiled and wished his brother luck, also telling him to show everyone how it should be done. Hearing this, Gaius only became angry. When the boy began to approach the magic circle, the teacher told him to begin. The boy accepted this instruction. Gaius stretched out his hands and began to use magic. A flash appeared in the air. The students were amazed by this power. Julius also looked at it in surprise. Gaius sighed heavily when suddenly a huge monster began to appear from the magic circle. It was a level 50 griffin. The amazed people shouted that it was the heavenly commander-in-chief of the troops. They did not understand how the guy was able to summon a level 50 familiar. Gaius laughed and asked Julius how he felt about it. He exclaimed that this was his real power. In response, Julius said that it was a very small bird. The guy said that Gaius couldn't possibly have such a low score and that he would need to discuss a retake. Gaius was stunned. Everyone around was asking what the too small bird meant because it was a heavenly protector from legends. They were asking what he was even talking about. Julius said that such griffins are only good for walking because they fly very hard. Eliza was surprised and said that these are very rare creatures. Julius exclaimed to his brother that he could do more and he needed to do it again. Gaius was amazed. Already embittered, Gaius told his brother that since this option did not suit him, he should come up and show what he was capable of. Julius hesitated when he heard this. He thought that in those days when he was a hero, he did not have to summon anyone. People had already started laughing, thinking that Julius was afraid. They were sure that the boy was afraid that, being the older brother, he would only get the first level. Julius sighed and walked out to the magic circle. He had done something similar before, but it was still not the same. He decided to see what would come of it. Julius was enveloped in his own magic. He thought he needed to gather the power and direct it straight into the circle. He tried to do what he was thinking about. Immediately after that, a strong explosion of magic occurred in front of him. Even the sky parted as Julius's magic rose high above the atmosphere. Everyone was amazed. Gaius tried to stay on his feet while people shouted in delight that the sky had split into pieces. Everyone was amazed by this bright light that appeared because of magic. They simply could not believe that one person had done this. At this time, Julius silently watched what he himself had done. Suddenly, a huge monster, similar to a reptile, began to appear from the flash. People wondered what level of magic this was. From the magic circle, an incredible dragon appeared, whose name the world had never seen before. Even its level was unprecedented. The monster spread its wings while people continued to ask about what it was and what level it was. Gaius did not understand how this could be, because he had never seen anything like it. He asked what kind of magic this was. Julius calmly pointed his finger at the dragon and asked the others if they knew this guy. Even the dragon himself exclaimed that it was impossible. To the surprise of everyone who saw this monster, the dragon screamed that this could not be because it was too rare a creature. Hearing this, the students turned pale with fear. They did not understand how he could speak. Julius asked in surprise what they were talking about. The students began to talk about how magical creatures usually do not speak. They have the consciousness to understand language and speak, but no one has heard or seen such a thing. This level cannot even be determined in points. The teacher was as amazed as the others. He asked the boy how he managed to do this alone. Julius turned around and asked what they were talking about. He stated that whatever they were looking at, it was nothing to be surprised at. Since ancient times, there was a powerful dragon that was feared by all people. It was known by the name of Clephon. This creature inspired fear and trembling in everyone on earth, and was known as the supreme ruler of all living beings. Gaius was amazed that the dragon even had glowing eyes. The person who caused this must have had enormous magical power in his body. The dragon opened his eyes and looked at the frightened people who could not take their eyes off him. He was extremely dangerous. Those who once saw him were so scared that they died of fear due to the destruction of their spirit. Such dragons are a great threat to life. His name is the Lord of Dark Forces. The dragon called out to the old hero. Julius smiled and greeted his old friend. He asked if this was the first time this dragon had come out in 2,000 years. The students began to fall down in horror due to pain and poor health. Julius turned around in surprise and asked what was wrong with them. The dragon answered him that this was a common thing. The students realized that they seemed to be under the influence of magical power. The Demon King possessed enormous magical power. From the shockwave, people with such a low level fainted. The dragon turned to Julius and said that he was especially close to his magical field. But he was completely calm. He said that he was extremely happy that the power of the reincarnated hero was still alive in Julius. The boy exclaimed to the Lord of Dark Forces that he definitely deserved praise. He told the dragon to look at how hard it was for everyone from his power. He also said that it looked a little hostile, so he needed to reduce the power a little. The Lord of the Dark Forces apologized and said that he had not thought about it at all. Immediately after that, he began to glow brightly, which meant that he was reincarnating. Julius closed his eyes, saying how much they hurt. Quite quickly, the dragon's body began to shrink rapidly, taking on a human form. The Lord of the Dark Forces quickly turned into a beautiful and young girl who was wearing beautiful black clothes. The girl smirked and asked if such an image would suit her. The amazed students blushed. They could not believe that this terrible dragon was actually a beautiful girl. The Dark Lord proudly asked Julius how he liked this image. The guy said that it looked very good, and you could immediately see that she had reduced her strength. Julius thanked her for such sensitivity. Suddenly, Julius heard someone shaking with anger behind him and saying that such a thing simply could not be. Sincerely offended, Gaius pointed his finger at Julius and said that it was very difficult for an ordinary person to summon a servant of such a high level. Gaius exclaimed that the person who could do such a thing simply could not be his worthless older brother. The guy was very angry. Julius smiled and pointed his finger at the girl, telling his brother that she was his servant. The Lord of the Dark Forces sighed and said that only her master could she allow herself to be called a servant. Seeing this behavior, Gaius only became more angry. He shouted that it was just a coincidence. Gaius took his griffin and said that they should decide in battle who was superior in magical power. He shouted loudly, calling Julius to a familiar battle. Watching this, the Dark Lord took a deep breath. Suddenly her eyes lit up with scarlet blood. She cried out for Gaius to repeat it to her in a minute. Seeing the strength and power of the girl, the pathetic griffin of Gaius was terribly frightened, after which he immediately ran away. Gaius was confused, not understanding why his familiar had evaporated. The proud girl sighed and turned away. She said that it was extremely insulting to compare her to such a weak servant. Julius said that it was exactly as he thought. It was the Eye of Blinding, a deadly magic technique. Gaius fell to his knees in despair, asking how this was possible. He did not understand where Julius could get such power from. The boy was able to summon a servant who was beyond all possibilities. He was in despair. Gaius simply couldn't believe that such a familiar was summoned by his brother's potential. The boy's eyes trembled. He couldn't believe that Julius was 1,000 times superior to him. Gaius simply didn't understand at what point Julius became better than him. In despair, Gaius knelt down, asking how someone like Julius could be better than him. The boy turned to the dragon and said that he knew he was empty as a jar. He also asked what kind of power he was talking about. The Dark Lord sighed and said that Gaius was not a very interesting conversationalist. She said that she did not care about the rest of the world because, in the end, the only thing she needed was to fight for her master. Julius asked if this meant that it was all her magic. The girl smiled and confirmed the guy's guess. She said that it seemed to be a real body, but it still didn't look like a true demon king. The girl said that it was not a real call, but it was not a ritual to identify imitations. Moreover, she said that it seemed that the servant was bound by the rule of absolute obedience to the master, which was established by the code. Julius asked in surprise what she was talking about. The girl explained to Julius that this was not the body of the demon king. Now she was only the hero's faithful servant. Julius blushed and then said that he understood. Suddenly, the girl began to study the dark energy. The students who were nearby were frightened and screamed in fear. The next moment, they all fell to the floor unconscious. Julius was confused and asked the girl what she was doing so suddenly. The girl said that Julius should be calm because there was nothing terrible here. She explained that she simply put them to sleep so that they would not disturb them. Julius remained silent, but did not quite support such things. The girl squeezed her hand and turned to the hero. She said that she was very glad that they were finally able to reunite. She raised her hand and said joyfully that for the first time in 2,000 years they were together. She told Eugene that she had been waiting for his return for a long time. Julius was a little confused, after which he worriedly decided to clarify a little about the battles. He asked if the girl was saying that she obeyed the master absolutely. She confirmed this and said that she was multifunctional. Hearing this, Julius sighed deeply. He looked at the floor and said that he was just bored. After these words, the girl was happy, looking at her master. A strong energy barrier appeared around Julius. Suddenly, he said that he knew one game. The guy concentrated most of his energy in his hands and said that in this state they needed to try something. Julius and the Lord of the Dark Forces stood opposite each other. Strong magic was active around both of them. The girl turned to her master and offered him to celebrate the long-awaited reunion for the first time in 2,000 years. Julius turned to her, Venomzard, and said that after their conversation she would be able to go wherever she wanted. At this time, all the students were lying on the ground unconscious due to the abundance of magical power. The girl grinned, gathering all her strength in her hands, after which she exclaimed that she agreed, and after that she would return. In just one instant, she jumped up from her seat and rushed straight at Julius, who was already preparing to attack the girl. Surrounded by his own magic, Julius raised his hands to use his birth magic. By this point, Venomzard was already close enough to Julius to launch an attack. She approached him and attacked, after which many bright flashes and strong explosions appeared in the air. Using his swordsmanship skills, Julius used attack reflection. He gracefully dodged Venomzard's serious attack. Because the guy used the attack reflection, all the girl's strength returned to her. She screamed loudly, after which she inadvertently moved away from Julius. Another flash appeared near Julius's weapon, thanks to which the guy was able to easily launch the girl far into the air. Finding herself high in the air, Venomzard laughed loudly. She was extremely excited and glad that only one person was able to repel her attacks like that, and that person was the hero. In the blink of an eye, Julius was behind the girl with his sword. He was already preparing to attack. The guy said that it was so, after which he thanked the surprised girl. Venomzard noticed this attack quite late, so she only managed to turn around and try to block the attack with her hand. The girl flew far back, because the force of Julius's blow was far from weak. Venomzard flew along the ground for a sufficient distance, after which she finally stopped. The girl stood up, sighing heavily. While she smiled, blood flowed down her lips. She loudly exclaimed that the power of the sword of Julius, the hero, was able to tear off her right arm. The girl exclaimed that it was simply wonderful. Noticing this, Julius was a little surprised. The girl raised her shoulder where her right hand had recently been. Suddenly, the parts of the hand that had flown in different directions began to gather into one funnel. The next moment, Venomzard's hand was restored from small particles. The girl grinned and said that this was not the end. Julius slowly approached her, saying that she seemed to have used instant regeneration. In response, the girl only laughed. At that moment, the girl began to gain magical power in her hands again. She said that Julius should wait a little because all the most interesting things would be waiting very soon. The guy silently watched what Venomzard was doing, preparing for the next attack. The girl smiled widely and told Julius to try to repel his next attack. After that, she started to hit the guy with her fists quickly. It was a magic spell called the Hard Fist of her magic power. The girl dealt thousands of blows one after another, while Julius stood silently defending himself from the attacks with his aura. At this time, in the fortune teller's house, an unknown person was examining something on the ball. The woman said that it was Eugene. A young girl approached an old woman and addressed her as Grandma. In response, the old woman said that there was a fierce magical power under the western sky, and it was spreading rapidly. The woman said it was terrifying because she had never felt anything like it. She said it was a sign of the end. She felt it. She watched the battle between Julius and Venomzard through the magic ball. She thought that this was the force that would destroy their world. At the same time, the girl swung again to deliver another attack with her fist. She hit Julius right in the face. After that, the guy moved away and said that they should probably end it there. He asked the demon lord what she thought about it. The girl asked in surprise, how so? The guy, a little offended, raised his hand to his cheek and said that it hurt and itched. He also noted that Venomzard had a very good punch. The girl was amazed to think that Julius had repelled all her attacks, although he was saying such things. She did not understand why he had such a calm face in such a situation. Suddenly, Julius spoke about how for a dark master such blows were a bit weak. After all, she was the lord of the dark forces. The girl was speechless after Julius's words. The guy said that for 2,000 years it was almost the same with him. He said that now he clearly felt that the demon lord had weakened a little. He asked if it was strange. Hearing these words, the girl laughed loudly, which caused confusion in Julius, who immediately began to ask what was going on and whether he had really said something funny. The girl asked the gentleman if he still hadn't noticed it. The guy looked at Venomzard in bewilderment. The girl smiled broadly and said that they were now connected by a magical path. Julius asked in bewilderment what kind of magical path Venomzard was talking about. The girl began to explain that the magical path is a spiritual thread that connects the master and his follower. Thanks to this, he could easily move into a form that shares the power of the Demon King. Hearing this, Julius asked, a little surprised, what happened to him in that case. The girl told the gentleman that with her power, if she passed it on, he would become twice as strong as he was now. Venomzard confidently said that she was not weak, and with her strength he would become even too strong. Julius listened to her silently. The guy said he understood, but he didn't know if it was right or not. The girl said that there was nothing to be done because they had different powers. She smirked, saying that Julius thought it was wrong. She said that she would show it to the guy. Julius looked at Venomzard, who was already gathering all her strength, with a little surprise. Lightning flashed around her. She advised Julius to try harder, because now she would measure his strength. Suddenly, the girl was surrounded by bright rays of light. A powerful and unlimited force surrounded the girl. The sphere of magic grew larger with each passing second, while Julius only looked at what was happening in amazement. Claws and a tail appeared on Venomzard's body. The girl entered the state of a dragon god. A huge spear continued to shine around her while she was transforming. Julius looked at this and thought that it seemed that the Demon King's power was still not gone. The girl smiled and stretched out her hands in front of her. She was about to attack Julius. She clenched her fists, and a powerful force began to gather around them. The girl exclaimed that now was the time to strengthen herself. Julius was quite surprised when he noticed that in her hands, Venomzard was gathering the dragon power that she had in her full form. Venomzard gathered most of the magic power in her hands, then redirected it into the air using her dragon's breath. Immediately after, a huge explosion was heard. More than half of the sky above the city where the battle was taking place was covered by a huge wave of fiery force. The people who lived in this city were very scared and began to leave their homes in order to understand what was happening in this place. People were really scared that such terrible things were happening right above the school in their city. They didn't know at all what was happening in this place. At this time, the girl still kept her hands in a stance. The fire had just dissipated so she could calm down. She looked at the huge cloud of smoke that appeared after her attack. She silently waited for something. Suddenly she laughed with some alarm and said that such a thing was simply impossible. Julius, who was in that cloud of smoke, got out completely unharmed. Venomzard didn't understand how this was possible because the boy hadn't received any lesson. Julius calmly held his sword with one hand while he extended the other forward, creating a light barrier. Julius asked, a little disappointed, if this was the same Demon King's pride, the destructive beam that had once bothered him. He asked if Venomzard thought it was too weak. After these words of the guy, the girl only laughed harder, after which she said that he had come up with this rather cleverly against her massive attack. She exclaimed that this was her master. She said that they should continue their game. Julius threw his sword over his shoulder and asked if they were finished already. Hearing this, Venomzard was surprised. The guy looked at her carefully and asked if she still hadn't noticed anything. Suddenly, the girl felt a sharp blow pass parallel to her body. The girl was surprised and gasped as suddenly her body split into two parts. Venomzard did not understand what had happened. The amazed girl asked Julius when he had been able to do this. At a fast pace, Venomzard began to fall down while Julius watched silently. He quickly sighed before telling the Demon King that this was getting boring. After Venomzard fell onto the magic circle she was summoned in, Julius landed quietly next to her. The guy said he couldn't believe he defeated the Demon King so easily, who was doing everything he could to kill him. He said it could throw you off your rhythm. The girl smiled broadly, after which it turned into loud laughter which puzzled Julius. Venomzard began to connect the two halves of herself that Julius had cut apart earlier. She said admiringly that it was a complete, even absolute defeat. She said that she knew she was not the strongest in history. Julius asked if she was satisfied with these 2 points. The girl exclaimed that she was happy to be a servant of a master like him. The guy asked if she was really going to stay here. The girl confirmed this and said that he had called her. She exclaimed that he should take responsibility, for she was going to serve the master until her body dried up. Julius thought about it and said that it had already been destroyed 2,000 years ago. The boy extended his hand to Venomzard and told her to allow him to express his gratitude. The girl was surprised by this. Julius thanked her for transforming him because even in such terrible times he still had fun. The guy smiled widely right after he thanked the girl for it. Seeing this, Venomzard was quite surprised. After that, she sighed and said that he had a very kind face. She took his hand and stood up. She exclaimed that she would be glad to serve him. The guy thanked her for her service. An unknown man in glasses who watched what happened said in amazement that it was simply unbelievable. He said that in the end the prophecy turned out to be true. The man was genuinely amazed by such a huge power that he saw. The man assumed that he was probably already fully awakened. He quickly realized that Julius von Carlyle was the hero Eugene. The man smirked and then said that he needed to make sure as soon as possible whether Julius was suitable as an instrument for the events that followed. A small flash was heard again in the calm sky above the city. Someone was moving quite quickly across the sky. Julius, having accelerated to such a speed that he himself was not even visible, was looking for something, saying that he was sure that he was somewhere here. Suddenly, the boy noticed exactly what he had been looking for so long. He quickly landed on the ground, happy that he had found it. He smiled and said that 2,000 years had passed, but it still looked great, and all thanks to the magic that prevented it from deteriorating. The guy looked at the neat building. He joyfully exclaimed that this was his home. Once upon a time, there lived a man whose name was Aaron. He was talented in all forms of martial arts. His magical potential surpassed the gods, and his healing power was comparable to the king of spirits. And he was the strongest and noblest hero in all of history. But even a man like him couldn't handle the strongest demon king, Venom. A man who took on the hopes of all people but could not cope with them went to the mountains in voluntary exile. And there he made a decision to raise one orphan. The man lived in peace, passing on to the child all his fighting skills, swordsmanship, and healing magic. This child in the future was able to defeat the Demon King, the great hero who ended the Dark Ages. The godlike hero, Mr. Eugene. Julius was holding a bottle of alcohol and was talking about how this is what they teach in history classes now. He asked if it was funny. The boy smiled sadly as he looked at the grave of his beloved grandfather. He clasped his hands and said that he was glad that he was reincarnated in this world and not in some other one. He was also glad that he could visit his grandfather's grave like this. The guy was a little surprised, after which he said that they were on the same world line. Julius quickly extended one of his hands forward, then began to carefully release magical energy, while simultaneously using his creation magic to create a sword. Quite quickly, 2 swords appeared in the guy's hands. One of them was light and neat, while the second was pitch black. Its blade was curved with red streaks. Julius took both swords in his hands, then carefully crossed them. He sighed and decided to use the magical power for his own purposes. He took another deep breath, then cast a spell on the Sword of Emptiness, which was sent by the Spirit. Immediately after this, bright flashes of light appeared in front of Julius, which were accompanied by a light and slightly unpleasant sound. A huge cross appeared in the night sky right in front of Julius, illuminating everything around. Suddenly, this cross began to increase in size, expanding quite quickly in all directions. From the space that was in this cross, the figure of a rather old man began to appear. The unknown person smiled lightly and said that it was quite amazing. Julius looked at the man and smiled. At this time, the old man said that it was interesting how he used both the powers of the holy and magic swords to cut through the wall of the world that separates this world and the afterlife. The man came out of the cross quite quickly. His torso and legs gradually appeared, after which he finally stepped onto the ground. He said that the guy had a really interesting idea to facilitate his contact with the dead. As it turned out, this man was a long-forgotten hero. The spiritual body of the hero Aaron stood before Julius. The old man sighed and smiled, after which he said that not everyone could do such a thing. He asked what his beloved grandson Eugene thought about it. Seeing the man, Julius smiled broadly, glad that he had managed to meet his grandfather. About 2,000 years ago, in this very house, 2 people were talking. One of them handed the other a small envelope and said that it contained instructions on what the second should do after the death of the first. The old man handed a small envelope to Eugene, who did not want to discuss this at all. He asked his grandfather not to do this because it was no longer funny. The old man sighed heavily and said that everything was not like that at all, and he did not have much time left, and he was clearly aware of this. Eugene took the envelope and opened it, after which he was very confused. Aaron sat weakly on the bed. He said that when he died, Eugene should go to the orphanage, the address of which he had already indicated in this letter. He stated that all of Eugene's property would be given to him there. The old man told Eugene that the boy should live a very ordinary life, and that he did not have to become a hero. He was not the kind of hero Aaron wanted to see taking revenge on the Demon King. In the present, Aaron sighed heavily, swirling his glass of wine in his hands. He clearly remembered that he had once said this in the past, but now that Julius was here with him, everything was completely different. Now, Julius was a hero who had successfully defeated the Demon King, and he had already brought order to this world in the Dark Ages. Listening to his grandfather's words, Julius couldn't help but laugh. Aaron admitted that Eugene actually had many talents from the start. He said that when the boy developed them, defeating the Demon King must have been very easy for him. Hearing this, Julius was flattered by the praise. The man lowered his glass of wine and said that in fact everything was not quite like that. He sighed heavily and said guiltily that he seemed to have bound the boy with an old grandfather's curse. He thought it had made things very bad for Eugene at the time. Old Aaron hung his head and closed his eyes, then said he was truly sorry for what he had done. Julius immediately jumped up and said that it was not that at all. He did not want to make his grandfather sad. He exclaimed that he had inherited Aaron's sense of duty of his own free will to his grandson, while Julius shouted that he clearly had no regrets about this. Suddenly, the old man sternly said that Eugene's goal was only to defeat the Demon King, and 2,000 years ago he tried to realize it in the Demon King's castle. Julius was quite tense. He asked Aaron with some discomfort if he had really seen what happened in the Demon King's castle that day. The old man sighed, after which he told Julius the truth, that in fact, it was he who made it possible for Julius to be reincarnated that day. The boy shrank back and said in a heavy voice that he should apologize to his grandfather for everything that had happened. Aaron shook his head and said that he was the one who really needed to apologize. After these words, Julius fell silent, but he clearly felt anxious. Having gathered his strength, Julius turned to his grandfather and admitted that he was very sorry about this. But Aaron was already in another world. Julius rubbed his hands from stress. He asked his grandfather if it was safe at all. The old man smiled and sighed. He raised his glass and bottle of wine and said that he needed to do something else here. Julius was surprised and asked what it was and if Aaron was going to teach him something. The old man began to drink the wine in his glass. He said that it was actually connected with Julius. The boy was surprised and asked what he wanted. If Julius likes living in the second circle of his life, then he can worry about nothing. The boy said that this life is quite difficult to love. The old man replied that in that case Julius should look for what his heart wants. The boy began to get nervous. He asked what Aaron was going to do to him. The old man raised his hand and told him to look up. He stretched out his hands and said, "Just as there are many shining stars in the night sky, so Julius has many options. He just wanted his grandson to find his. And in the future, 2 years later, all people will know about the guy." This was Aaron's only wish. Struck by these words, Julius looked at his grandfather, unable to believe his ears. After that, he said that he would try to do everything in his power. The old man thought for a moment and asked if this meant that Julius would not come here for some time. The boy confirmed this. Suddenly, Julius admitted that he was sorry that he had left Aaron just before his death. He also said that he had hardly been in their shared home. The old man laughed and said that it did not bother him that much. The man stroked Eugene's head and said that they were, after all, a family. Julius was genuinely touched when he heard this. He said that Aaron was right. 2,000 years ago, Aaron told Eugene that the boy's parents were actually alive. Eugene was surprised by this. The old man said that a few years ago there was a big fire in which he picked up a child who was Eugene. However, there were no casualties during this incident, so the boy's parents may actually be alive. In other words, Aaron said that they did not share the same blood. Upon hearing this, Eugene turned to his grandfather and said that he was glad that it was his grandfather who raised him. The boy smiled and said that for him he was the only family. In the present, Julius repeated these words. Hearing this, Aaron was touched. He smiled and said that Julius was truly a worthy grandson. After this meeting, Julius was silent for a long time. He had to think about what he wanted to do. He was no longer Eugene, but Julius von Carlyle. He had to enjoy this life as much as possible. Someone was swearing loudly in the royal castle. The king was telling Historia that he had received terrible information. He said that she had broken off her engagement to the first son of the Carlyle family. The king also added that besides this, it seemed that the girl was close to their second son. He was amazed by this story. The frightened princess said that she would explain everything. The man exclaimed that he would not listen because the king's daughter had such a scandalous affair. He exclaimed that Reb should cancel the engagement with the Carlyles immediately. Historia was in despair. The girl walked along the corridor of the academy, thinking that she would not forgive Julius. She remembered that her father had banished her from the castle until she corrected this misunderstanding. Historia screamed that it was terrible. She didn't understand why she had to bow down to Julius and restore the relationship. Also remembered that Julius was acting like a different person. Suddenly she remembered how he caught her after the competition. The girl involuntarily blushed when she suddenly realized what she was thinking about. She began to wave her hands, not understanding what was going on. Historia began to assure herself that she was definitely not thinking about him, and that she was above him. The princess thought that now she knew what to do with her father's words. She wanted to disgrace Julius. If it was all about her looks, she thought it would be easier to train him than to hold him back. She was already prepared for anything. The girl resolutely burst into the office and asked if Julius was there. In the office, she saw Eliza, who was turning to Julius, saying that she did not quite understand the topic. She asked if Julius could help her. The boys who were in the office screamed with delight, thinking about how beautiful Eliza was. She was a very cute half-elf. Venomzard was there too, talking about how interesting the school was. She said she was starting to like it. The boys were shouting that Venom was beautiful today too. They thought she was breaking all the rules of beauty. Venom hugged Julius, saying that it would soon be lunch, so it was time for them to go to the cafeteria. Julius made a displeased face. The guy said that the girl had already gotten used to the academy, having been a demon queen in her past life. People stood aside and envied him with the blackest envy. Eliza asked to go with them. Meanwhile, Princess Historia stood aside and indignantly asked herself who these girls were. She guessed that they were another one of her competitors. The princess couldn't understand when the guy had managed to put together such a female circle. At the same time, Venom pestered the guy, saying that he had prepared food today and that she could take it with her, because he cooked very well. The princess fell to the floor and thought that she had lost. Looking at Venom and Eliza, she realized that these gorgeous girls had beaten her to Julius's favor faster. She was very upset, and then she began to shed tears. Meanwhile, everyone had already begun to disperse and begin dinner. Julius took his wonderful lunch out onto the table. Venom took a bite and said it was incredibly delicious. Compared to the sandwiches that Master made, the food that Venom's people made was just trash. Eliza also said that it was great food. The girls continued to chew and said with a smile on their faces that Julius was the best cook in the world. The guy chuckled, saying that if they were saying that, then it was the absolute truth. Venom said that if the guy is a hero, then he can cook such a delicious dish very quickly. She even lost the desire to fight. Julius was surprised. He couldn't even imagine that one sandwich would be enough to extinguish her warrior flame. Eliza asked if Venom was really the demon queen. Venom smiled widely, putting her hands behind her head. She asked what Eliza could be sure of. Venom also said that she could create complete chaos in this cafeteria in a couple of seconds. Julius intervened, saying that it was better not to do that. Eliza said that it was true then and she was the big dragon. Venom savored all the food and said that it was so amazing that she couldn't think of anything else. Eliza turned to the boy worriedly and asked who he really was that he could summon the demon queen. The boy simply smiled. Julius said that he was nothing more but no less than just an ordinary man. Eliza looked into his eyes, laughed a little, and replied that he was much more mysterious, in fact. Venom turned to her and asked if Eliza had ever thought of sticking her nose into other people's business. Eliza quickly waved it off and said that she had never even thought of such a thing. She folded her arms sweetly across her chest and said that whoever Julius was, she didn't care. All that mattered to her was that they were friends, and that would be enough for her. At that moment, Julius was suddenly stunned. The guy quietly and excitedly repeated that they were friends, and then reached out and took Eliza's hand in his own. He had never had friends before. He enthusiastically began to thank Eliza, after which he said that he would definitely be friends with her. The girl was surprised, after which she said that he was not one of those, but she would like to continue to be friends with the young man. The teacher appeared in the dining room. She called Mr. Carlyle to her, asking if he was there. The teacher announced that the young man was being summoned to the rector of the academy. At first, Julius thought that they might be calling him, but Gaius immediately stood up from his seat. The guy said too confidently that he understood everything. Julius asked his brother if they were really talking about him. Guy adjusted his hair and said that when the headmaster calls a member of the Carlyle family at this academy, it is always about him. The boy smirked at his brother Julius. The teacher smiled, standing in the aisle, and said that Guy was in fact mistaken. She needed Julius. Eliza was very surprised at that moment. Guy started shouting at his brother, being extremely dissatisfied. He saw that Julius, according to his observations, was now pleased with himself and was not even ashamed of it. Yuli apologized to his brother, then got up from the table and headed towards the exit. He followed and thought about how sudden his call to the director was. Yuli hesitantly asked the teacher what he could have done wrong. The woman apologized to him, saying that she also did not know the reason why the boy was called. Julius began to think further. Of course, this was not his first day here, but still, he was haunted by some strange feeling of anxiety on the way to the head of the academy's office. After walking down several flights, they finally entered the right floor. Passing a long corridor, the teacher turned around in front of the door and said that Julius could go inside. The young man replied that he understood everything, after which he came close to the door. After knocking carefully several times, Julius apologized and gave his name. The doors opened and a director also asked the boy to come in. When Julius and Nora entered, the girl immediately screamed in fear, seeing something on the wall. Julius was also surprised, but his reaction was calmer. The director looked at his guests, then asked the frightened teacher what had happened. Julius pointed to the wall and said that there was a cute lizard there. The man smiled when he heard Julius speak so complimentarily of the animal. He noted that it was a pretty good joke, considering the state Nora was in. In fact, the lizard was a green dragon. The director said that it was one of the rarest species of dragons in this world. The dragon opened its mouth fiercely. A vicious monster with strong scales, sharp claws and fangs, and its furious flames from its mouth are terrifying. Anyone who saw it could not find words to describe their awe. The director had never heard anyone call it cute. Julius said that it was quite amazing that a lizard could evoke such emotions. The director laughed, saying that Julius was quite a funny person. The man introduced himself, saying that his name was Isolus. He was the principal of this school. The man apologized to Julius for calling the boy out so suddenly. Julius thought that he had finally seen the headmaster in person. The young man said that he clearly understood that the headmaster had probably called him on some matter. The director laughed, asking if the boy really thought so. Julius said that he was just trying to live a quiet life, so this call was really unexpected. The director, still smiling, picked up his handkerchief and took something from the table. The man raised his hand with the object and asked if Julius recognized it. The young man thought for a moment and suggested that it might be some kind of trash. The director held it out for a moment, then agreed, specifying that it was part of a device that measured magic. Afterwards, the man said that it seemed like it was Yuli who had turned everything upside down and destroyed the equipment. Yuli was horrified, realizing that it really was him. After a while, Eliza hovered over the guy, asking in surprise if the guy really had to go to the dungeon under the school now and completely alone. Julius scratched his head and said that it was the director's order. He wanted the boy to show his strength. They couldn't do it any other way because the measuring device was broken. Eliza was excited. The girl asked what Julius would do now. She also asked if he knew anything about this dungeon. The guy answered that he knew nothing. Someone nearby started laughing. When Julius turned around, he saw his brother Gaius. He said that after all, his older brother really was an ignoramus and a fool. After that, Guy began to tell that the dungeon under the academy is a labyrinth that spreads out in the basement of the building. There is a magical cave there that was overrun with monsters. No explorer was safe there, and that is why the door there was sealed for a long time. This place was forbidden to everyone for a long time. Guy started laughing, saying that the director was good too. Being sent to a place like that was comparable only to execution. Guy could change his anger to mercy and help his brother if he apologized to him. Julius folded his hands together. He listened carefully to everything his younger brother Guy was telling him and said that now he really understood what the director was talking about. Afterwards, Julius turned around and waved to his brother with a smile on his face. He said that in that case, Julius should go there and they would see each other again. Daegius asked furiously if Julius had even heard him. Julius thought that his brother had no idea he was in the dungeon at all. Julius laughed, saying that he had a pretty cute brother who had developed an older brother complex. When Julius finally came down, he saw a stone door with a red pentagram on it. It couldn't mean anything else. Julius came closer and said that it was him, the entrance inside. The guy turned around, thinking that the heroes of the lodge loved to go down into such dungeons. Perhaps in his past life he was no exception. Suddenly, a small venom appeared in front of him, clearly displeased with something. The demon queen assumed that this Isurus might be up to something unclean. Julius was pleasantly surprised, saying that Venom didn't have to go with him at all. Venom said that she couldn't go anywhere, because a servant can't leave his master. She winked at Yuli, telling him that the boy shouldn't worry, because she wasn't going to bother him. Yuli smiled back and said that the director hadn't said anything against a little help. Julius said that their goal should be at the very end of the labyrinth. There they had to collect some items that would serve as proof of their passage. Taking a step forward, the guy said that it had been a long time since he had been to such a place and was even a little excited. Venom confirmed, saying that she was happy for the master's happiness. Soon the first obstacle appeared before them. It was a group of monsters armed with clubs. Goblins, apparently. Julius noticed that they were full of strength. The armed crowd laughed at first and then rushed to the attack with disgusting cries. Julius rushed towards them, saying that they had started suddenly, but he demolished them in one fell swoop. Having blown up all the opponents, Julius threw up his hands, perplexed. The guy asked if this was really all that stood in his way. Venom said that it seemed true. Venom also added that the difference in strength makes it much easier for him to kill monsters, because they lose all will to win. She also added that he is truly a hero that no one can compare to. Julius didn't respond to these compliments in any way. The guy first rolled his eyes, then looked ahead and said that he still had a bad feeling about this. A little further, a new enemy appeared in front of them, much more serious than the previous ones. It was a headless horseman in black armor who was level 50. Julius remained calm and stood still. When the horseman jumped up to him, he struck the guy's head with his sword with a strong swing, but the weapon immediately broke into 2 pieces. Then, everything went according to the same plot as with the goblins. Julius, in one moment, with the help of his magic, erased the rider from the face of this world. There was an explosion, after which they went further along the labyrinth. The enemies grew stronger as Julius and Venom advanced. After the rider, they encountered several stone golems, which were already around level 70. After that, there was a level 75 hellbird, several level 80 gargoyles, as well as a harpy queen in Bostral, whose levels were already over 90. All fell in one hit. Julius walked on, saying that it was all rather boring. Venom admiringly asked the hero not to say such words. Julius said that the monsters had too low a level. The guy added that, in his opinion, Vera had never fought a monster one-on-one. The demon queen said that sometimes the hero is too strong and it's probably a shame that she's not around. Julius wanted to know why Venom thought it was bad. The girl said that initially all monsters were created by the demon king's magic and their power came from there. After he was defeated, it took the demons 2,000 years to recover. Humans didn't get any better during that time. Suddenly, Venom saw a staircase. The young man looked at her in surprise, then said that he was, of course, very glad that she was leading him. But he suddenly became interested in how she knew the way. Venom asked why he was interested. Venom suddenly asked if the boy really hadn't noticed anything yet. She said it was a castle. This school was built on the former lands of the king. Yuli was surprised, after which he remembered the very beginning of his journey back to the director's office. Now he understood why he had such a sense of déjà vu while looking around the academy itself. This school felt like they had rebuilt some kind of demonic castle. But why would they do that? It was 2,000 years ago, and he didn't know what people were thinking back then. Venom said that in any case, this labyrinth is like a garden for her. Suddenly the girl warned that there was a trap ahead. Julius also noticed it, after which he thanked the queen. Julius also asked how he could thank the queen for all this. The girl winked at him, saying that he could praise her very well. The long corridors ended, and they entered a spacious room decorated with tiles of different colors. In the middle, there was a pedestal with something bright on it. Julius asked in surprise what kind of room this was. Venom was also very surprised, paying more attention to the fact that there was some very beautiful stone floating there. Julius and Venom came closer, after which the young man extended his hand to the stone. He decided to take it with him, about which he consulted with the Queen of Demons. The girl agreed, saying that it would be like a souvenir from here. Julius began to examine the jewel carefully when suddenly the room began to change. The floor under the guy's feet began to shake violently, and Julius, looking around, was slightly confused. A fist slammed down on the table. A man's voice asked very loudly what his accuser was thinking. It really did seem completely unthinkable to them. The man continued to ask how the principal could send the students there, since it was too risky. Then he asked what the principal was going to do. The director continued to maintain his silence, trying to find the right words. The man leaned impatiently towards the director and shouted his name. To cool the men's ardor a little, Isurus opened a small drawer in his desk and took out an object in a handkerchief. He pointed at it with his hand, telling the men to look. Isurus said that it was a piece of some magical object. It was impossible to break it with the magic of the people of this world. But despite all this, Julius was able to do it. A group of men couldn't believe it. They started asking how it all happened. The director said that they wanted to check the materials first. Afterwards, someone from the group asked if the director had really sent the guy to the basement. There had never been a single person who had returned from there alive. Suddenly, everyone saw a very bright pentagram, from which incredible power and blinding light emanated. Everyone turned around in surprise and began to look at it. No one could understand what kind of magic it was, but at the same time, everyone felt the power coming from there very well. They got scared, and someone shouted that it was too dangerous, and they had to disperse. To their surprise, it was only Julius, who appeared from the pentagram as if from a portal. The guy stepped forward and saw that everyone was staring at him. Everyone could not believe it. Julius shielded his eyes from the light and said that there were quite a few men here. Venom, who was nearby, said that they might be having some kind of celebration here. A group of men started shouting that Julius had not addressed them very politely. They asked how the guy had ended up there. Julius calmly said that it was the magic of movement. Everyone was even more surprised when they heard about the magic of movement. They could not understand how this could happen. Because in this world such things are impossible, and from a child at that. Julius calmly said that he was too lazy to walk back, so he used it. The people in robes began to say that there were no people in their world who could use such magic. Julius also joked, saying that such magic is especially convenient at night when you go to the toilet. The dredger looked at the boy with a smile and asked how it went. Suddenly the men started laughing, saying that if you look closely, the boy came back empty-handed. They seemed happy that the young man was not able to handle the adventurer's stone. Yuli suddenly put his hands in his pockets and realized that they were talking about some kind of stone. Venom immediately reminded the guy that they were talking about the very same object that they took in the last room. The young man immediately remembered how the room shook and guessed what was being discussed. He put his hand in his back pocket and said that he had managed to pick up an object in the next room. Julius took out a small gemstone, which immediately began to shine brightly. He asked if this was what the men were talking about. They could not believe that this was a real adventurer's stone and that the guy had a large supply of magic. Some of the men started throwing up their hands and saying that this stone was supposed to be guarded by a sacred beast. They couldn't understand how the schoolboy had managed to get it. Julius thought for a moment again and realized that after he picked up the stone, the ground under his feet immediately began to shake. One of the walls shattered into small pieces. Apparently, when they spoke of a certain sacred beast, they had in mind the three-headed wolf that appeared in the room after Julius took the stone from its support. The man pounced on Julius and shouted that they were talking about a three-headed sacred beast called Cerberus. They also said that there was a 100% chance that he was there. Julius started laughing, saying that he understood. Apparently, the men were telling him about that same dog that showed him its belly and started to cuddle. They couldn't believe that the boy could tame the sacred beast. Then Julius said that he wanted to take it with him, but Venom forbade him, saying that it was too much trouble. Julius continued his story, saying that in that room there was only a dog and a glowing stone. Then he discovered a hidden door and a secret room. The men began to lament, saying that the wall where the stone was called a reincarnation. This resource has the highest strength in the world. Did he break it? Julius raised his index finger, saying that it was a fairly simple task for him. The guy was able to destroy the wall with the sword he had with him. All the listeners quickly lost their faces, exuding only one emotion. Everything that Julius told them now plunged them into a strong shock and seemed something impossible. Julius added that when he managed to make a small passage into the secret room, it was there that he was able to notice many interesting things. Julius only added that he did not know how to take everything he wanted. There really were many precious treasures that attracted the eye. It was for this reason that Julius did not choose anything separately and, after thinking for a while, decided to remove everything. He opened the magical gates and placed everything there. Basically, it was a technique from space magic, where you create a hole and… Venom, seeing how they looked at him suspiciously, said that it would be better to show it once. Julius really understood that such a huge flow was creating confusion among those who did not understand. He agreed with Ven and then showed all the treasures of the secret room. The men rushed towards the artifacts, sorting through the items. Among them were the magic ball of infinite magic and the legendary sword Levantine, in short, many SSS-ranked items. Julius looked at Venom, surprised that even such items were there. Venom said that 2,000 years ago they were not as rare as they are now. Julius tilted his head to the side and asked the men, calling them uncles again, why they were so surprised by all this. Almost all at once, everyone began to stretch their arms forward, pointing their fingers at Yuli. They asked in unison how they could not be surprised by such a rare phenomenon in their world. The school principal, meanwhile, who remained at his desk, continued to watch all this in silence. Such a commotion only caused him to smile and laugh loudly. After Julius finished in the office, he returned to his friends. Meeting Eliza, he showed her some paper. The girl began to study it, saying that the guy was able to return from there alive and well. In addition to this, the guy was able to take away a huge pile of treasures and also received a written order that he is now a special student of the academy. Julius said that everything was exactly as Eliza said. Then he asked if being a special student was really considered so cool here. Eliza was surprised when she found out that the guy didn't know his new privileges at all. He now has access to free education as well as early admission to all exams. Such students are the stars of the academy. Only one such academician is chosen per year, and it was Julius. Eliza still could not believe it, while the boy calmly drank tea. Venom sat next to him, no longer in her school uniform but in her usual outfit. The girl smiled and said that there was no doubt that Julius would be such a student. Julius turned to her and said that he could see how happy she was now. Venom broke off a small piece of her dessert and said that she was glad that the boy's abilities were still there after 2,000 years. Eliza continued to look at Julius with amazed eyes. Venom continued to eat her dessert, praising how delicious it was. Eliza suddenly said that Julius had really changed a lot. Before, the young man was so unapproachable and ignored absolutely everyone. The young man only firmly said that Julius was the Julius from the past. He suddenly became very interested. His memories were still partially preserved despite the reincarnation. But the situation was not entirely safe. Many people did not understand Julius when he was just being transferred. Everyone took him for a very strange person. The young man leaned back and continued to think. I wonder what that Julius was like. The boy would like to meet him, although probably nothing would change. The guy looked away and thought again about the amount of time that had passed. As many as 2,000 years. His life had previously been completely different, less calm and more filled with some kind of excitement. But, despite all this, there was almost complete devastation everywhere. The ground was strewn with dead monsters and adventurers, and the nights lasted much longer and were gloomier, darker. Now everything is different. He sits calmly and drinks tea in the fresh air, being a 15-year-old boy who does not think about how he will survive tomorrow. The world is flourishing every day, and the city streets are now full of happy people who enjoy walking and talking to each other every now and then. It was a feeling of calm that was not there then at all. And it was really very peaceful. And the people themselves experienced a lot of different bliss and pleasures. Julius turned to his company, then picked up a cup and said that everyone around him was smiling and he found it incredibly cool. Julius also said that he feels very calm here. He really feels good here. Eliza asked what Julius was saying. She added that it is like this everywhere now. The guy closed his eyes, enjoying the scent of the street flowers, and then said that Eliza was probably right. Suddenly, he remembered something rather important. The guy began to remember the abundance of all sorts of different creatures that had previously filled the planet. He asked Eliza what had happened to all the monsters after so much time. Eliza just started laughing, saying that they had been gone for a long time because they had all been destroyed. She also said that the boy should have studied this in history class. The guy looked into the distance again, where the green blossoming crowns of trees were visible, after which he exhaled easily and summed up, saying that peaceful times are very good. Someone began to appear on the horizon, confidently walking towards the group of guys. They turned around in surprise, as if they sensed something was wrong. Between the tables walked the silhouette of a man who was carrying something big in his hands. The voice of a young man said that he knew everything. It was Julius's younger brother, Guy. Gaius was somewhat gloomy and carried something rather large in his hands. The object was wrapped and fastened very firmly around its entire perimeter with something. Gaius was very angry and said that Julius had taken his place as the best student. Julius smiled and said that he did not become one because he wanted to. If Guy wanted it, then his brother would easily give in to him. Gaius placed the object on the ground and a metal ringing sound was heard from underneath it. The young man said that Julius always makes him look like a real fool, which he is not. Guy added angrily that he was not going to forgive his older brother for such behavior. Then his hand grabbed the wrapping material and began to tear it into pieces. Eliza and Venom stared in surprise at what Guy was doing. The elf girl realized almost immediately what Julius's younger brother was up to. She opened her mouth wide and began talking about the object in his hands. She said worriedly that it was kept in a museum under very strict guard. The protective wrapping clips kept falling to the floor and soon it appeared outside. While Julius sat in complete bewilderment, looking at what was about to appear before him, Eliza almost immediately shouted that it was the legendary sword that Guy was already holding tightly in his hands. Guy was very surprised by his brother's behavior. Someone started shouting that Guy's behavior was simply outrageous because you can't quarrel with your brother. Gaius ordered everyone around him to be silent. He looked at Julius and told him to fight him. His hands tightened around the legendary blade of the Thunder God. Guy was confident that if he could defeat his older brother, he would immediately be given back his rightful place as a special student of the academy. Julius remained completely calm. He stood in place and stretched out his hand and told Gaius that it was not worth it. The elder brother was ready to give this place to Gaius anyway. Gaius began to get indignant, asking how much longer Julius would treat him like a little child. He made an angry face and told his brother to prepare for battle. A huge clap of thunder erupted from the sword and headed towards Julius. The elder brother still stood in his place and calmly waited for the thunder to reach him. In the same flash, Guy suddenly appeared, swinging his sword, but Ulick calmly dodged, keeping his hands in his pocket. By doing this, he only showed his superiority. Julius jerked his head. Eliza was very excited and thought that this movement was very fast. Guy continued to grin. Gaius said that it was not over yet. Then he made several more attacks. Julius's eyes widened, amazed at the properties of this legendary sword. This sword contains thunder and lightning magic. Its speed was now equal to the speed of lightning. Julius understood that Guy would definitely not be able to keep up with him. Guy shouted that now Julius will get it for everything he did during their training at the academy. Eliza shouted in fear for Julius to be careful. At one point, when Guy was about to launch another attack, Julius calmly grabbed the blade of the sword that was flying past. The guy just calmly said, "Oops." Everyone was in complete shock, including the demon queen Venom, who continued to drink tea in the confusion. Guy shouted that this simply couldn't be happening. Julius smiled and started to turn around. He said that Guy had become faster than last time. Guy couldn't believe that Julius could handle it so easily, because he now has the speed of lightning. Julius just smiled, then decided to joke and said that he was lightning too. He became even more angry and shouted for Julius to stop talking nonsense. Suddenly, someone shouted that he had finally found it. When both brothers turned around, they saw Fat Man, who was indignantly shouting that Gaius was a barbarian, had dared to steal the sword. Guy began to justify himself, saying that the man should understand him correctly, and the young man was ready to explain everything. The man continued to angrily shout for Guy to come to him. Julius just smiled and urged everyone to calm down. The man looked at him and adjusted his glasses. He recognized the guy, saying that he was the special student. He immediately rushed to Yuli with a wide smile, saying that now he understood everything. The man immediately said that nothing terrible had happened and the guy could have simply asked. He waved his hand at the boys and said that next time they should just warn him so that he wouldn't run around in vain. The man left, leaving the two brothers in place, who didn't understand anything. Julius turned to Guy and showed 2 fingers with a wide smile. The older brother said that he was very lucky because thanks to him, Guy was spared several problems. Guy said that he just hated that about his brother. Julius again urged him to calm down and told Guy to go and eat some cake. Venom looked at the boys with admiration, saying that they were very friendly. The director stood by the window and watched everything that was happening on the street at that moment. He saw perfectly how Julius dealt with his brother without even trying. He narrowed his eyes a little, then clapped his hands. Various sounds immediately began to appear behind him, as if someone had immediately appeared behind him. In fact, that's how it was. Several young people in school uniforms immediately appeared behind the director. Their eyes glowed unnaturally, like little light bulbs. The group of boys immediately turned to their director and asked if he had called them. The director, without taking his eyes off the window, began his address to the group of boys who had arrived. He said that his prediction was correct after all. At that moment, the students began to transform into their true forms, becoming monsters. The director said that their time had finally come. It was time to show their strength and power. Everything should go like clockwork, as it was predicted. The director smiled broadly and said that this guy was the reincarnated one. They simply had to show him what they were capable of and take revenge. After all that had happened, Julius headed back home. When he arrived, he was immediately met by several maids who bowed their heads before their master. They informed the gentleman that dinner was ready and he could go into the dining room. Julius was really hungry and quickly changed his clothes and headed to dinner. He was met by his parents, who stood and smiled widely. The father solemnly shouted that their son was a good boy. The mother added that the boy was truly the pride of their family. Julius was surprised at how quickly the mood had changed at home, too. Now everyone at the academy and at home was exalting him. He turned to Guy, who was sitting dejectedly at the table. The father approached Guy and decided to cheer him up a little. Putting his hand on his shoulder, the man said that there was no reason to be sad because their eldest son was a real role model. Julius only thought that they had started dinner without waiting for him. On top of that, they hadn't left him a place at the table and he had to take an extra chair himself. And these two were his parents, talented younger brother Gaius, worthless elder Julius. But he is not recognized at all. Because of the reincarnation, I do not understand why they had such a relationship with Julius. I wonder if they treated him like this for all 15 years. Okay, Julius just decided to ignore it and ask what the parents were talking about. He immediately caught two tense looks. The father turned to the young man and asked what he was doing there. At first, Julius did not understand the question, but then calmly said that he was just having dinner. He smiled broadly and said that they were a family. That's what a family should do, Julius thought. The man suddenly said menacingly that Julius was not their child. Julius's face immediately darkened, thinking how cruel it was to say such things directly. He remembered his grandfather who had always been kind to him. The man continued to praise Gaius, saying that he was truly surprised when he received the letter from the academy. Gaius was really great because he was able to become a special student. The father added that he had no doubts about their youngest son and believed in him. Julius raised his head in surprise, looking up from his food. He wanted to understand what was going on here. The father continued to beam with joy, saying that Gaius was unmistakably their child. And this child would answer the name of their family throughout the world. Mother laughed carefully and aristocratically, saying that she was already planning the near future. Guy gritted his teeth, trying to hold back his emotions and shame to the last. Suddenly, Gaius made a sound, which he apparently wanted to attract attention, after which he said that this was not so. He added so that everyone would understand the boy did not become a special student of the academy. The father stared at his youngest son in surprise, asking what all this meant. The mother also joined in the interrogation, not understanding what the mistake could be. The father said that he had definitely heard that Carlyle's name was there. Suddenly, the maid came into the room and addressed the master, saying that they had received a letter from the academy. The man asked to bring it here to the dining room. He took the sealed letter in his hand and held it up, telling Gaius that this was proof of what he and his mother had said. He added that they had even been sent a letter with material confirmation. Yuli looked up from his meal, looked up at the letter and said that it was his. The father turned around angrily and asked what Julius had said. Julius looked at the man in surprise and repeated that it was he who had become the academy's special student. The mother and father immediately rushed at their eldest son, saying that with his grades he didn't even dare open his mouth when it came to such academy titles. Mother whispered to Father that Julius suddenly thought too much of himself. Father said that it was indeed strange, then began to unfold the letter, saying that it must definitely be Gaius. When they started reading the letter, the words that immediately came out of their mouths were that this simply could not be. Both parents stared at the letter in shock, but it really was written there that this school was making a special student of Julius von Carlyle. Father said that this was definitely some kind of mistake. The father said slowly that in that case the following conclusion involuntarily suggests itself. It turns out that Gaius is worse than Julius. The younger son abruptly stood up from his seat and ran out of their common dining room. It was already late at night. Gaius did not even have dinner then and locked himself in his room all alone. The guy was sitting on the bed, his knees pulled up to his body with his hands. The guy's gloomy face was still unnaturally pale from all the moral horror he had been through in the last couple of weeks. He didn't understand what was so special about this title. He continued to sit in his position and suddenly swore sharply. He understood that literally a few days ago his brother had become completely unrecognizable. Julius behaved somehow completely differently. After all, the brother he knew before had been very silent and shy since childhood. Everyone around him pointed at him and laughed, calling the boy worthless. It was at that moment that the parents had already made their choice and understood who they would place their hopes on for their noble lineage. Father had been saying since childhood that Gaius would not become like his stupid brother. They believed that Gaius would become the true successor of their family and continue to glorify it. Now Gaius also remembered that he behaved completely differently as a little boy. It was then, in deep childhood, when they sat and played toys together, that Guy did not feel any hostility towards his brother. It was then that he said something to Julius. Guy leaned towards his brother and smiled, saying that he would definitely become strong and cool. This would change a lot in their future lives, as the younger brother believed then. Suddenly, the boy stood up and clenched his little hands into fists. He said that that was when he would defend his older brother and tell everyone not to dare hurt him. Julius, in his laconic manner, was at first only surprised, and then a warm smile appeared on his childish face. He looked at his brother and agreed with him. As a child, Julius always played with Guy and supported the boy in any situation, even when his younger brother was wrong. When Guy was sad, they slept together in the same bed. This was the brother he loved. But one day everything changed dramatically. It happened on a cold winter day when Guy was 5 years old. He still remembers that day. Then the whole family went to the mountains. The escorts relaxed a lot because they thought there were no monsters at all. Then, at that moment, the disaster happened. Everyone was already very cold and began to run out of strength. Then a huge, abnormal bear appeared on their path, which tore apart several of the family's guards. Ahead lay the bodies of people killed by the bear. Guy ran up to his older brother in fear and began to tug at his clothes, saying that he didn't know what to do in this situation. The bear saw two small boys standing not far from him and rushed at them, making a deafening roar during the attack. Guy closed his eyes and began to cry, shouting his brother's name. At that time he had already prepared himself for death. He understood that they were just two children who could not do anything here. But suddenly, something happened that was completely unexpected. Julius then suddenly took off from the ground and jumped onto the bear's back, clutching the bear's head tightly with one hand. After that, the eldest son waved his hand and tore off the monster's head. Guy was very surprised. He fell to his knees and did not understand what had just happened. The bear was definitely defeated, left without a head. His body immediately collapsed on the cold snow. Gaius only saw the blood flowing on the ground immediately freezing, turning into red ice. He was shaking all over and asked his brother what had just happened. At that moment, Julius finally turned to him and broke his silence. The older brother smiled and asked Guy if everything was okay and if the boy was hurt. Guy continued to stare at his brother, his mouth wide open. His tears had also begun to freeze on his face by this point. Julius was like a prince from a fairy tale he had read at the time. The older brother became a real hero for the boy, despite what everyone else said about him at the time. It was as if he saw the true strength and abilities of his brother that no one else had seen. After Julius did this, he suddenly began to lose consciousness and fell to the ground. Gaius immediately ran to his brother in fear, asking him to come to his senses. When everyone saw this, he was automatically made a hero, considering that it was Guy who dealt with the bear. The brothers still remained a complete nobodies. But only Guy then saw his real brother Julius, and that the guy had been hiding his real abilities from everyone all this time. But why did he do this? Suddenly, someone knocked on Guy's room. Gaius raised his head tensely, after which he heard Julius's voice behind the door. The older brother was asking if Gaius was already asleep. Gaius was very surprised by such a late visit. Guy shouted what Julius was doing here. The older brother just chuckled a little, then began to lift the tray of food that was on a small maid's cart. Julius said that Guy couldn't even eat properly. That's why he cooked him something. In other words, a special dinner from his older brother delivered to his room. Guy angrily grumbled that he didn't need all this, after which he asked Julius to leave. The older brother continued to persuade Guy, saying that he had tried, putting in effort and love. Guy pulled himself away from the bed and began to slowly hobble to the door. He exhaled heavily and asked why Julius was bothering him. Through the wooden door to the room, Guy heard Julius think for a moment, then say that he needed to choose his words. Julius smiled and said that Guy was his younger brother. No matter how much hope they had for him, Guy still decided to keep his older brother's strength a secret. All that was left for the younger son was to work hard and catch up. But everyone around him continued to see his brother as worthless, never knowing what he was capable of. Perhaps Julius hid his abilities so as not to attract attention. When such thoughts came to Guy's mind, he would start to get angry. But despite all this, Julius suddenly began to show everyone his strength and even became a special student. The silent brother who pretended to be worthless began to show himself. Guy repeated these words in his head, after which he hit the door with his fists. Guy said very angrily that he hated Julius because his older brother was always deceiving him. Julius continued to stand at the door with a tray in surprise, not understanding anything at all. This upset him, because all Julius had always done over the last few days was try to make peace with his brother and was ready to continue to sacrifice his attention, giving everything to his brother. The older brother exhaled and said that he would leave the food here by the door. He wanted to talk, of course, but he realized that they would not succeed. Julius added that Guy should eat everything before it got cold. Julius walked away, leaving the corridor. O waved his hand and said goodbye to his brother. Guy stood by the door for a while longer and listened to the sounds of footsteps. After Julius left, judging by the sound in the hallway, Guy came out of his room. He looked at the cart, then lifted the lid of the tray. There was a single dish and a spoon, but this dish looked delicious. A crust of pastry that covered everything, a little sauce, and a little sauce on the pie itself. Guy wondered, what's so special about it? Snorting, Guy told himself that he would never eat this. But afterward, the young man wondered if Julius had done a good job with the dish, or if there was anything to complain about. He carefully picked up the spoon and tried to break off a piece as silently as possible, standing right in the hallway. Inside was a filling of fried rice with vegetables and everything was still hot. Guy began to bring the spoon to his lips, slowly opening his mouth. He continued to convince himself that he was eating this only to find out how Julius cooked. The guy started chewing the food very slowly, savoring every note of flavor that could be caught in the spoon of the dish. Suddenly tears started flowing from his eyes and Guy said that it was very tasty. The boy knelt down in front of the food cart and began cursing to himself, repeating several times how delicious and exquisite the dish his older brother had prepared was. Venom heard sounds in the hallway and called out to Yuli. The girl looked and said that his brother was now kneeling and crying in the hallway. She asked Julius if he had added anything to the food. The young man just grinned, standing around the corner of the corridor. He said that somehow they would sort out the relationship anyway. Julius smiled broadly and looked at Venom. The guy immediately said that the secret ingredient is love. Although slowly but surely she and he will become a family again. The next day, Julius was already heading somewhere in his carriage accompanied by a regular cab driver. Venom suddenly called out to him and asked him where they were going. Julius yawned, saying that today, as they said, there would be a ball at the palace. All the aristocrats were invited and Julius too, so he was going as if he were from the Carlyle family. Julius continued to think that he was too lazy to do all this now. But it had always been like that at all times when his family obliged the boy to fulfill the duty of an aristocrat. Suddenly, the young man felt something, after which he opened the door of the carriage, which continued to move at full speed. Julius made a maneuver and jumped onto the roof. He began to peer ahead. At that moment, Venom, who didn't understand anything, began asking Julius what had happened. The guy covered his eyes from the sun, after which he said that someone would attack about 6 kilometers. The girl looked closely and then began to use her vision enhancement with magic. Her gaze seemed to be directed forward for several miles, sensing danger. Now she too saw several armed men, bandits apparently, surrounding one of the carriages, which apparently was also heading to the ball. Venom said that this was indeed the case. Julius only said that he could not be mistaken. Venom noted that the young man was able to sense this danger without even resorting to any magic. She began to praise Julius. He closed his eyes and said that it was so. Venom smiled and said sarcastically that he might not even thank her. Venom decided to find out what Julius would do now. People started getting out of the carriage, cursing that they were surrounded. The bandits were happy. The gang was already happy that the nobles would not be able to escape from them. Suddenly, they heard someone shout, "Stop!" at them. Unexpectedly for everyone, Julius appeared in the middle of the clearing. The bandits saw something start to fall on them from above and they guessed that it was magic, but they did not know who this impudent boy was. Julius firmly said that he was the one asking the questions here. He looked at the crowd of bandits and assumed that they must be bad guys. Julius added that if they would now leave their weapons and retreat, he would spare them. The bandits looked at the boy with indignation, not understanding whether he posed any threat to them or not. One of the bandits reached for his blade, calling the young man a small bug. He took out his dagger, which he immediately raised up, showing the guy. The bandit said that now he would quickly deal with the young man with his technique. But if the blade was already broken, the blow was so fast that the bandit didn't even have time to realize that he was already effectively unarmed. He looked at his neatly cut dagger and screamed. Julius stood in front of him, holding out the other half of the blade. The boy apologized and said that he was the one who broke the dagger. He had to do it because he simply asked a question and they pulled out a weapon. He indignantly asked when Julius had managed to do this. Then his face changed to a smile and he said in a satisfied voice that there was poison on the blade and Julius would soon die. Julius threw the dagger aside and said that the poison had no effect on him. Then the guy added that he had surrounded himself with a protective barrier from the very beginning. Venom smiled and said that it was just a little trick for the guy. The bandit completely lost control of his emotions and began to scream that this simply could not be. The rest of the attacking group took out their weapons. Julius just exhaled, clasping hands together. He immediately realized that they could not be trusted. The bandits immediately asked what the young man had said. One of the bandits immediately supported the other, saying that there was no need to be afraid of the boy because they would not lose to such a boy. Then he put 2 fingers in his mouth and began to whistle. This whistle was familiar to the rest of the group, who remained sitting in the bushes and waiting for a request for support. As soon as they heard the whistle and shouts, they immediately rushed from the thicket to the carriage. The bandit group quickly increased to about 3 times its size. The reinforcements were in good spirits, for their faces simply glowed with joy, anticipating the spoils. They kept going out and someone told Julius that maybe he was not bad, but there were 30 of them and the guy was all alone. Julius quickly looked around. Julius immediately used his magic skill Stealth and became completely invisible to the gang of thugs. He immediately approached each of his opponents. They didn't even have time to do anything, thinking that the guy had simply run away. When the young man appeared behind the bandits, which he did very quickly, he simply waved his hands at them first. After this, the guy would immediately deliver one aimed and powerful blow to the back of the head, causing all the bandits to immediately fall to the ground, sometimes not even having time to make a sound. The bodies of the armed warriors fell one after another, but almost simultaneously. That's how fast Julius was. Someone screamed, trying to figure out what was going on. Julius stood still, hands in his pockets. The boy said that he only used the aura here to create a sense of transparency for them. Afterwards, the boy raised his index finger and said that even children can do that. The bandits clearly did not share the boy's opinion, being surprised by his talents. One of the bandits said that the guy was just making fun of them. The first one who attacked said that the poison didn't work on the guy and that his magic was very strange. He asked Julius who he was. Afterwards, almost immediately, he started shouting to the teacher, saying that they could handle it themselves. Julius was surprised. Another man appeared from the forest and said that they themselves could not do anything. He continued to choose something, after which he said that the group of bandits was quite large, as many as 30 people, and they all fell. He called them weaklings and now looked at Julius. The leader of the group was several times larger than any of the bandits who had attacked Julius. He held a piece of meat in his hand and said that he had never thought that he would have to fight himself today. Julius took a closer look at this very teacher. The boy found his smell very familiar, which immediately loomed before his nose as he appeared. Julius folded his hands again and calmly asked if their teacher was a monster. The bandit with the poisoned blade looked at the boy in surprise. The bandit immediately asked what the guy was talking about, since all the monsters had long since died out, about 2,000 years ago. The teacher interrupted him and said that Julius was quite good and had a good sense of smell. The teacher immediately transformed. Now he looked like a huge gorilla, which had a pair of horns and an eye located exactly in the center of the forehead. The bandit screamed that he really was a monster. Julius said what the teacher was saying because everyone would immediately notice such power as his. The guy smiled broadly and said that the matter was becoming more and more interesting. Monsters have indeed not been seen in this world for a long time, but it is worth clarifying something before we talk about them. They have always been distinguished by their bright aura. In the past, people could always sense this, but apparently the world has changed. Many of these creatures have indeed adapted and have begun to take on human forms, lying in wait. Monsters are those whose purpose in life is destruction and killing. They did this for the simplest fun, but also to show their dominance over everyone else, especially people. They could form huge hordes, sometimes huddling together in large groups. This dark force was feared by people of all times, while monsters openly existed on the continent. But Eugene was able to put an end to this because the guy killed their king, after which all the monsters disappeared. Today, not everyone even knows about their existence before, unless they study the history of time. The bandit, who continued to look at the huge beast, screamed, shedding tears and snot. He was very scared because he had never seen anything like it. Meanwhile, the monster had grown several times in size, towering over all the trees. He looked at Julius, and the bandit continued to shout that their teacher was indeed a monster. It was Kong Hard Hand. As if smacking his lips with the remains of food, the monster laughed, looking at the very small young man in front of him in a white suit. He called Julius a pathetic little man, saying that the guy seemed unable to utter a word when he saw the true face of the leader of this gang of worthless people. Julius, looking very naive, raised his head and began to address Kong in surprise. The boy repeated that he had asked a question earlier, so the monster had to answer him. Julius suddenly turned to Venom and asked her if there was a king of monsters somewhere in this time. The girl said that as far as she understood, there really was one. Venom simply said that she had no such information. Julius turned back to the monster, calling it a gorilla. The guy loudly asked if there was anyone else besides him. After Julius said that he probably didn't know because the monster looked pretty weak. The monster immediately wilted. The bandit from behind the tree began to ask what this madman was doing. Julius said that there was absolutely nothing to be afraid of because in appearance it was an ordinary gorilla, which was only a couple of times larger than its stupid relatives. The monster rushed to attack, shouting, "How dare Julius speak like that?" The monster opened wide all three eyes that he had, and a wide mouth with fangs. He said that for his insolence the boy would die now. But Julius simply stood in his place without even removing his hand. The fist reached the boy on the ground rather quickly. It wasn't that the blow was devastating, but even the momentum that came from it shook the ground. The huge monster, which reached a size of a couple of 100 meters, already thought that the fight was over, and the self-confident boy with a good sense of smell was already buried under his fist. Pieces of earth began to fly in different directions. One of the bandits clung to a tree and begged for help. The carriage, harnessed by a horse, began to rear up, trying to move the carriage from its place. The people who were sitting inside at that time had no idea what kind of force it was. The monster remained in its position, seeing steam gushing out from the place of impact. He didn't even show any resistance. Starting to smile, Kong Hardhand tore his fist off the ground. He chuckled, saying that Julius definitely didn't survive after that, because he was an ordinary human. He thought the guy was really worthless, but it turned out he was very wrong. The blow of such force did not hit the ground, but the guy's outstretched hand. Kong was very surprised by such power. The guy simply said that he was rather bored. Kong's eyes widened immediately because this was the first time he saw a person who could deal with him so easily, and at a time when their race had changed. Julius only said that it was all the magic knight. He was the one protecting the guy with a magic shell. Julius also added that not everyone can see, but it seemed to him that Kong could do just that. The monster's eyes widened in surprise, saying that he had no idea what kind of magical shell Julius was talking about. He continued to move his eyes around him, but he really didn't see anything. Julius, as if he was already tired of explaining everything to everyone, sighed heavily and, looking at Kong, said that these were completely basic things that everyone should know. Kong opened his mouth in surprise, very confused. Venom laughed and said that this technique was really popular 2,000 years ago. Julius smiled and said that he used it often. Kong only became more angry and began to swing again, only much harder. His eyes seemed to light up, and a loud voice said that he would never forgive the boy. Everyone who was nearby tried to hide. The blows flew one after another at high speed. Kong decided that he would definitely finish Julius right here, and some brat was definitely no match for him. The bandit who was hugging the tree started shouting that the boy was now definitely dead and most likely turned into mush. It couldn't be any other way. Kong stopped and then, slightly out of breath, began to laugh. Kong straightened up and spread his mighty arms. He continued to laugh and asked how the boy had fared. The monster was happy that he had crushed the boy like a bug, but it wasn't as obvious as he might have imagined. The dust began to clear and he saw Julius standing on his feet. The young man asked if this was really all Kong could do. The guy looked around. The ground was completely pressed down and scattered in different directions. Only a small circle where Julius stood remained unharmed. Now it was finally Julius's turn. He stopped the blow again, then said that the monster didn't even put any magic into his blow, as if he thought he could win that easily. That same bandit looked out from behind his tree, which he continued to hug, and shouted that something was clearly wrong with this guy. After all, he was able to stop the teacher with just one hand. The monster cursed, then asked what Julius had actually done. The guy put his hands on his waist and indignantly asked if Kong really couldn't see anything. Julius got into a fighting stance and began to prepare his turn to attack. Suddenly, everything around the guy began to glow and he cast the spell, Magic Fist. Julius apparently really decided to support this rivalry and continue the fist fight. When the monster saw that the guy was using a spell, he tried to stop him right away. Julius's magic immediately went towards Kong and hit him. The monster began to fall back. His mouth opened from such force, and his eyes began to bunch up. But the blow only gradually gained power, causing the bright flash to become brighter and brighter. The gorilla's teeth began to crumble, and the monster itself began to scream much louder than at the beginning. Julius's power simply blew everything away. A huge section of forest was destroyed by the magical strike he used. It was unclear what was left of Kong. After such magic, a huge furrow remained on the ground. Kong was no longer visible nearby. Julius said that, as the guy thought, it was a low-level monster that succumbed to him so easily. The bandit, seeing this, began to slide down the tree. He did not understand what this could be. Only one thought came to his mind. In front of him now was the devil himself in human flesh. When Julius heard the bandit shout the word devil, he immediately began to look around. He asked sharply if there was anyone else here besides Kong. The bandit started pointing his fingers at the young man, saying that he was actually talking about Julius himself. Who could he be then, if not a representative of the underworld possessing such power? All the bandits suddenly found themselves behind one of the bars of a secure stone prison. They leaned on the prison door, asking if they were really caught. The portal began to close gradually, and Julius stood and dusted off his hands, saying that he had finally dealt with the bad guys. Then he asked if they could now continue on. Taking a few steps forward, the boy said that he had noticed the carriage when he was putting up the protective barrier. According to all predictions, it should have survived. The boy began to come closer, asking if everything was okay. The door of the crankcase suddenly swung open, after which someone jumped out very quickly. Until the creature completely stopped, it was impossible to see it properly. A certain girl with animal ears froze in place, kneeling on one knee. His hand was ready to grab the katana and he urged Julius not to move, because if he took another step, the warrior would chop him down. Julius stared at the girl with cat ears in surprise. He immediately said that it looked pretty cute, and then asked who the beastman was. He thought that a samurai most likely. Venom said that she was also quite interested. Julius suddenly remembered that the guy was talking about some devil nearby. The samurai pointed his finger at the young man, calling him stupid, then said that he was talking about him. Julius said that this couldn't be because he was definitely not a monster. The samurai started shouting for the guy not to lie because everything was visible. Then he started listing everything he saw himself. He immediately said that the guy has enormous magical power and this aura. On top of that, secret techniques that destroy monsters. Julius smiled and said that he was very pleased to hear that. The samurai grabbed his sword, standing up. He said that he was not praising the guy, then accused Julius of wanting to kill the passengers of the carriage. The samurai would not allow that to happen. Julius noticed that the guy was standing in an EI stance. This is a Japanese martial art that emphasizes awareness and the ability to quickly draw a sword in response to sudden attacks. The samurai immediately rushed forward, using his secret move in the technique of instant punch to the jaw. He was also quite fast and had already drawn his katana. While the blade of the Japanese sword continued to rush towards Julius, he even had time to think. After all, he had once managed to outpace the speed of lightning that was in Guy's hands. But one had to give the samurai credit, for Julius said that it was a pretty good execution of the attack. All in all, it looked quite interesting. But his own safety was above all else. So Julius managed to pull himself together in time, after which he used the technique sight slash. The next moment his hand suddenly rose up. After the samurai girl saw that Julius was unharmed, she quickly turned her gaze to her sword, which immediately split into two parts. The blade of the sword was quite thin, having a perfect sharpening. Julius was able to split it exactly into two parts, which was really simply impossible. The girl looked at her sword with tears in her eyes, asking how the young man could do it. She called him a real demon. Julius raised his hand and said that he managed to do it with his palm, while the samurai continued to indignantly ask questions about how the young man could do all this. A girl's voice was heard behind Yuli, who noted that the performance was simply wonderful. The samurai girl immediately began to shout for the princess not to dare to go out. She added that it was very dangerous here and it would be better for the girl to stay in the carriage for now. Julius was very surprised when he heard such a title. The princess said that in their kingdom, escorts undergo special and lengthy training. As it turned out, the unknown young man was able to deal with her so easily. The princess raised her fan and said that the guy must really be very strong. The princess suddenly opened her fan with flowers, behind which she hid part of her face. She was quite beautiful, but very embarrassed. The girl turned red and asked if Julius would marry her. Julius stared at the girl in surprise, not understanding what was going on. The samurai immediately shouted at the boy not to get too cocky, because the princess of the country to the east was standing in front of him. The confused Julius remained silent. The samurai continued, saying that the princess in front of him was Sakura. The princess immediately bowed and said that she was pleased to deal with him. Julius said that this must be the reason why the girl was attacked, because of her title. The samurai stuck out her finger and told the boy not to dare talk to the princess like that. The princess started laughing, saying that nothing scary had happened. Afterwards, she added that she herself was very interested and told her assistant Harutora that she would hardly have been able to cope with that gorilla. Harutora said that if she had failed the task, then she should commit harakiri. The princess stopped the girl and said that she should simply thank this man. She added that he was their savior. Julius looked at the princess and said that she had quite an interesting appearance. He had never seen anything like it before. The princess started laughing again, saying that the guy was making her blush more and more. The princess started approaching Julius, and Zarutora at that time shouted that the guy should not dare touch her with his dirty hands. After everything that had happened, they were already riding in the same carriage. The princess was hugging the guy, saying that they were invited to the same ball and that it was definitely fate. The samurai was still angry. Julius only said that it was indeed an interesting coincidence. Then the princess asked what the young man's name was. Julius immediately remembered that he had forgotten to introduce himself right away. Julius turned around and said with a big smile that he was Julius von Carlyle. He also added that it was nice to meet you. The girls opened their mouths in surprise and fell silent. Julius did not understand what was going on. They asked if he really was from that very Carlyle family, after which they began to explain to the guy the reason for their surprise. Meanwhile, the carriage rushed forward, and the driver urged it on faster and faster because they were already delayed, being late for such an important social event. A man in a cloak, the hood of which hides his face, holds out a photograph of the boy and says that he wants them to kill him. He says that tomorrow their target will be riding a cart past that very forest. He asks them if they can handle it. They laugh and say that there are 30 of them. Naturally, they can handle it. How can he even take them for law? One of the hired killers takes his photo, looks at it and smiles, realizing that this is one such kid. The killer throws the photo into the air, waves his hand, suddenly takes out a sword and stabs the photo with it, saying that they will 100% kill him, of course, for good money. The customer smiles. All this is in memories because now Historia is looking at the ball and thinking, what stupid bandits, and where are 100% of them? She sees Julius von Carlyle, that he is alive and well, contentedly enjoying his food and spending the evening with a smile. The girl wonders if they really failed. She can't believe it. Now her whole plan is ruined. She clutches her head and understands that her father will definitely scold her. In any case, it is impossible for these two to meet for sure. If she adds poison to his food, he will be poisoned and die. Here Yulia comes up from behind and asks if she is talking about him. The girl gets scared and screams in surprise. He asks why she is hiding here. She is mean and answers rudely, what difference does it make to him? She asks why he is alive at all. Was he not attacked on the road? He has no idea what she is talking about. After thinking about it, he answers that no, he was not attacked, but others were attacked by bandits, so he saved them. He stands contentedly, crossing his arms in front of them. She understands that they simply confused the target. She asks, there were 30 of them. Did they really escape? He answers completely calmly that this is not so and that he defeated them all. She thinks to herself, they are weaklings. He says that the number didn't matter, he easily dealt with them all. She falls to her knees and thinks in complete sadness how this is possible. She spent almost all her savings on them. He doesn't understand and asks why she is so downhearted and how she knows about 30 people. She starts screaming in fear that she doesn't know and that she has nothing to do with it. He replies that only those who do such things say such things. She screams that she hasn't done anything like that. Then someone comes up to them and says that she doesn't hide her emotions well and that it doesn't work in her favor. The two turn around. A girl comes with a fan and says with a smile that she knows everything and knows that you tried to kill him. Julius von Carlyle asks in surprise if you really should be killed. The girl screams in panic, asking where she got the idea. Where is the evidence? Historia replies that she found her behavior strange. And she checked everything. They interrogated the bandits. They said that they were hired for money and that the customer was none other than her. She screams in panic that these are just words to cover up. They know that they are doing this on purpose. The other one says that if we consider this as an insult, then it is quite possible that their engagement was recently called off. Here Julius von Carlyle turns to Historia, who fearfully awaits his words. He starts talking, and she already says in advance that this is not so. She keeps stuttering. Historia's father appears behind her. She sees her father's angry look. Historia asks hopefully because he believes her that she is innocent. Here, the father slaps his daughter, causing her to fall down in shock. Everyone else, including Julius von Carlyle, is in shock. The father starts shouting how shameful she is. An attempt to take away Mr. Julius von Carlyle's life. How insidious it is. He orders the guards to throw her into prison. Here, the guards take her by the hands from both sides. Historia panics and does not understand and asks her dad what he is talking about. She starts to twitch and scream, "What are they doing?" She tells them to let her go because she doesn't want to go to prison. She keeps screaming that it's not true. She turns to her father again. She cries out in tears, why should she go to prison? Why is it all her fault? She keeps asking to let her go and is already crying out loud. She begins to remember and think if she was guilty from the beginning. In the palace, when she was 7 years old, she asked what other groom. Her father had told her that she would marry the eldest son of the Carlyle family and that he would suit her perfectly. This agreement had been made when she was still very young, for the sake of connections and politics. She had already wondered what kind of groom she would be. On the day of the meeting, when she saw Julius von Carlyle, She told him she was pleased to meet him and introduced herself. However, Julius von Carlyle did not answer her then, putting her in an awkward position. He was simply terrible to her. Whatever she told him, he remained silent. He always walked around school dejected. She had already despaired that she had gotten the worst suitor of all the suitors in this world. But one day he changed. To cancel the engagement, he made her suffer. And then he took and left her. She keeps screaming in tears and snot that it's all because of Julius von Carlyle. That it's all his fault. That she has absolutely nothing to do with it. Here the father cannot stand it and raises his hand to hers again with a swing and shouts how she even dares to say such a thing, but someone stops his hand. His hand is held tightly by Julius von Carlyle, and his father himself looks at him in surprise, not believing his eyes. Julius von Carlyle's eyes are full of seriousness. Here, Julius von Carlyle tells him, "Remember all the events and moments of the relationship between fathers and children, that a parent should not do this to children." Here, Historia herself does not believe that he said that. Father tells him that she aimed at his life and attempted to kill him. Then, Julius von Carlyle begins to say something else. Julius von Carlyle smiles and says that he doesn't pay attention to it. The king, shocked, asks if they even tried to kill him. Julius von Carlyle says that it wasn't even murder, but rather a useless game. Here he begins to get indignant and talk about his daughter's behavior. Julius von Carlyle ponders what to answer, and says that he will turn a blind eye to it. Here the princess's tear-stained eyes open wide. Her father also doesn't believe it and asks again if it's true. Julius von Carlyle only smiles at them. Historia stands there like a pillar and thinks. She doesn't understand. She aimed at his life, tried to kill him, and even during class she flirted with his little brother, and he doesn't care. She thinks he is so stupid that he can turn a blind eye to all this. Here she admits to herself that she loves him, and hearts fly in her eyes. She now sees Julius von Carlyle as a completely different person. An aura of fragrant flowers hovers around him. She understands that she adores him. Father starts screaming in shock and then calmly suggests renewing their engagement. Then Sakura shakes her head and says that, unfortunately, that won't work. She asks the king if he is not too eager to take advantage of the opportunity, hinting openly why she is saying this. He reflects that the Carlyle family plays a huge role in the political system and government if they miss this opportunity. Here Sakura replies that everything is because Julius von Carlyle will become her husband, and not Historia's. Here, both Historia and her father are shocked by this turn of events. Julius von Carlyle asks Sakura what she is talking about. She replies that he does not have a permanent job here. She tempts him by saying that where she lives is very nice, and the food is delicious and the scenery is beautiful. She thinks he will like it. Julius von Carlyle easily gives in and says that she, of course, aroused his interest. Then the king shouts at him that this will not do. Then Sakura interrupts him and tells him not to forget about compensation for the damages for his daughter. The king does not understand why at all. He shouts that the country has nothing to do with it. It was his daughter's stupid act. Sakura asks calmly if he is not responsible for her, and that it is somehow not majestic of him. The king wants to say something in his defense. Here, Julius von Carlyle's little girlfriend says excitedly that the situation is still heating up. Julius von Carlyle ponders. The guests at the ball begin to wonder what is going on. One asks, what is going on? Is there really a quarrel? Another wonders if this will lead to a major conflict. They discuss whether everything is really okay there, and his other interlocutor says that this must be avoided. They ask the main question. Could a war break out because of one word from him? Here Julius von Carlyle begins to speak after a long silence, and everyone falls silent, the guests awaiting his words. Julius von Carlyle nonchalantly states that he has no intention of becoming Historia's fiancé again. With the rivers folded in front of him, here Historia starts to cry out loud again, asking again what he said. Next to her, her father is also not happy with such a statement. He asks in bitterness how this is possible. Here, a joyful Sakura asks in hope what might have happened to her then. Here, Julius von Carlyle also refuses her and says that he only met her recently and has no intention of dating her. She asks again how that is possible. Julius von Carlyle suggests that they first become good friends. Sakura wants to convince him otherwise, but he doesn't pay attention, takes Sakura and the king's hand, and asks them not to quarrel. especially because of him, because in his opinion, it is not worth it. Here Historia looks at the situation in shock. All the guests watch in shock, and begin to understand that this means that they have tied the bonds of peace and now everything is fine. Julius von Carlyle asks Sakura if she is against it. She hesitantly begins to speak, looking away, that if he asks for it, then she will not be against it. Here the king begins to think that he will lose contact with the Carlyle family. But there will be a new alliance. In any case, he will be in the plus. The king coughs, then throws his arms out to the sides and shouts that this is a great idea. So he thanks Julius von Carlyle. The guests shout how great it is. They finally made an alliance with another country. Some do not believe it really happened. Everyone shouts that they will celebrate and drink to Mr. Julius von Carlyle. Julius von Carlyle exhales, rubs his neck, and says with a smile, looking around, that they have now resolved the conflict. While Julius von Carlyle was sorting things out at the party, a monster with a broken tooth and blood flowing from his mouth and nose was moving in that very forest. He breathes heavily and coughs. The monster raises his head and barely says that he will not forgive this. He opens his eye wide and says that next time he will definitely kill him, definitely. Then he hears someone behind him approaching him. He turns his head towards the sound. He sees a man with blonde hair, glasses, and a uniform covered in ornaments. It is Isurus. The monster turns to Isurus and says that he is just in time. He asks him to share his magic with him. He says that if he can recover, he will become stronger and take revenge on that boy. Isurus slowly approaches him. She comes up to him and says how careless it is. He is surprised by such a throw-in. He says that he will explain it so that he, a stupid monkey, will understand him. This man is a hero who returned after 2,000 years, so he is not his opponent. This man contains the magic of the demon king. The monkey screams in surprise. How is this possible? The magic of the hero and the demon, the two strongest, and even together. He replies that this is true, but because of the battle with him and the influence of magic, they were able to revive demons in this world again. The monkey does not understand and asks what this means. Isurus replies that he played his role excellently. He was lucky to have dealt with him, so he is glad. Then the monkey begins to understand and shouts at him that he used him. Then Isurus snaps his fingers, after which something terrible happens. Here the monkey is crushed with stones. Isurus leaves him with the words that he is grateful to him, and that his contribution will be taken into account. He says that now the creatures sleeping in the depths will be able to wake up again. And so even now one can feel this great enormous force raging on his land. In the middle of the building, a huge monster covered in eyes twitches in chains. Its size can be compared to a 3-story house. The sky begins to rage, the clouds thicken, a thunderstorm begins and focuses on only one place. Here, Julius von Carlyle sneezes, holding a glass of drink in his hand. Then his girlfriend calls him a hero and asks what's wrong, has he caught a cold? He replies that most likely someone is remembering him. Historia calls him her dear, holds out a spoon with meat and tells him to open his mouth. She asks him that they look like newlyweds, right? He refuses her offer and says that he can eat himself. Sakura tugs at his jacket and says that he won't let him do that. Historia thinks to herself that her love is true and that she will definitely make him love her. At this time, Sakura is also thinking. She thinks that such a good man must be on their side, so she decides to get him at any cost. Here the little girlfriend turns to the hero and asks if he had any brides before. He replies that he hadn't, because he was busy and had no time for it. She thinks to herself about love, that it is such an interesting feeling. Smells like romantic shoujo to her. She tells the hero that she will always be on his side. Julius von Carlyle does not understand and asks what it means. Historia calls him her darling again and asks him to sleep with her tonight. Sakura yells that it's not fair because they're crossing the line. There are 10 days left until one of the demons is restored. Those who are trying to prevent the demon from being resurrected stand with their arms outstretched, creating a barrier of sorts. They say with heaviness and effort that things are going badly, turning to the archbishop because they won't be able to hold out for long. At this rate, they will definitely be finished. The monster is still trying to get out. The archbishop is shouting at everyone to stop whining. He himself is barely standing, saying that if they allow this seal to dissipate, then humanity will have no chance to win. The monster roars, liquid flows from its several mouths. Its eyes move chaotically. as if looking in panic into someone's soul. A certain holy maiden, Mary Tendo, number 224, with dark long hair, falls to one knee and says tiredly that she can't do it anymore. The archbishop shouts at her to hold on because she is the only one of them who has inherited the power of the three sages. If she falls now, the seal will definitely be broken. She breathes heavily, greedily opening her mouth and gulping air. She asks for forgiveness from her father, her eyes gradually rolling up without strength. Others turn to the archbishop and say that the Holy Virgin has already exceeded her limit, because she has not slept for 3 days, and she continues to use divine magic. If it were not for the Holy Virgin, the seal would have already been destroyed. The archbishop says that he understands all this, however. Here the Holy Virgin Mary, tandem number 204, suddenly stands up, says with sighs that she is all right and that she can still. She barely holds on to her staff, and then suddenly falls face down, dropping her staff. And then suddenly falls face down, dropping her staff. Everyone cries out to her in concern. The monster starts to glow brighter, its sounds become louder. All the others scream that it's much worse. They can't contain its power anymore. The seal is about to break. Here the earth begins to shake. Everything breaks and collapses. It becomes so bright that all the magicians close their eyes not only from fear, but also from the light. The archbishop looks at him tensely and thinks that the monster is one of the pillars of evil spirits that 2,000 years ago plunged the whole world into fear. This is the god of destruction. Before them appears in a new form, the evil spirit Gansblood, with huge horns and a body from which different monsters with mouths full of sharp teeth jump out from different sides, bones and unknown tentacles sticking out everywhere. Someone falls to the ground without strength. From horror, they only say with a stutter that it is huge. They understand what awaits them. One in fear asks what this terrifying miasma is, his mere existence, as well as his magical power. The evil spirit chuckles and says that 2,000 years have passed, and now he has finally awakened. His laughter grows louder each time and becomes more and more terrible. Some forces push all the mages back. They groan in pain and hit their bodies on the walls and the ground. The archbishop is shocked that the monster just laughed and caused such a shockwave. They sincerely call this evil spirit a real monster. The monster himself thinks to himself that perhaps he will have some fun in honor of the rebirth. He wonders if he should destroy the entire world first. The magi lie and are already in despair, thinking and accepting that this is the end and that they have released this monster. So humanity has no chance of victory. This is the end. They will all be trampled. The archbishop is horrified at how powerless they all are. Then someone confidently and menacingly steps forward with his foot and shouts that this is not the end. The evil spirit turns around in surprise and looks at the man. Before him stands the Holy Virgin Mary 224. She breathes heavily and says that she, Mary, is called the Holy Virgin, so she will restore his seal. She holds her staff tightly in front of her, sweat pouring from her face. The evil spirit thinks to himself, "What a holy virgin." He looks and says, "What a paltry power she has." 2,000 years have passed. Has their human power really weakened so much in that time? He says, "How sad it is to see." The Holy Virgin Mary gets angry and shouts at him not to underestimate her. Let him take on the power of her entire body. Her staff turns into a holy arrow and bow. She pulls the arrow so hard that everything starts to glow. The other mages begin to feel hope. One of them says that this is one of the greatest divine spells in the world. The Holy Virgin Mary shoots an arrow with all her hatred and desire for him to get what he deserves. An arrow flies straight at him from a great distance. The evil spirit sighs and says how stupid this is. He covers everything in darkness. This arrow does not hit the evil spirit in any way. Saint Mary is shocked and wonders if he really reflected everything, if he really reflected the magic used at full power. The evil spirit suddenly grabs the Holy Virgin Mary with its huge tentacles. She screams and twitches. While she still resists, the archbishop comes out and tells the monster to stop and let his daughter go. The monster takes the Holy Virgin Mary to himself and calls for his father, and he shouts at the monster that he is a scoundrel because he used such dirty methods. How dare he take his daughter? Here he immediately uses his divine magic of the highest level and directs it at the monster, and it tells the people to stop making noise, calling them worthless and stupid. An arrow flies towards the magicians, and then strikes the archbishop right in the heart. who did not have time to attack the evil spirit and save his daughter. Blood gushes from his mouth, his magic immediately dissipates. He coughs and doesn't understand what it is and how. He didn't even see the defeat itself. He falls face down on the ground. The Holy Virgin Mary calls out to her father in despair, tears streaming from her eyes. The evil spirit draws her closer and tells her that she will soon go after him. She continues to twitch and tells him to let her go again and again. The evil spirit opens his mouth and says that after his revival she will be his first snack. She, horrified, heads for his mouth. The evil spirit says that this expression on her face, filled with despair and fear, couldn't be better. He probably thinks that the Holy Virgin's meat will be very tasty. All the magicians stand like pillars in place, not believing what is happening. The Holy Father is dead. Everyone just quietly calls the Holy Maiden by name. She is already crying in despair, stops screaming, twitching, and thinks, is it really possible to save this world now? There's someone sitting on the monster side calling. It's Julius von Carlyle in a suit, calmly calling the evil spirit. He points his finger at him as if he was going to scold him and says that it is not nice to be so rude to girls. The Holy Virgin Mary opens her mouth wide. The other magicians are also surprised by such an appearance. They wonder who it is. The evil spirit also did not understand who it was, and since when it had been sitting on his shoulder. Could it really be that he had not noticed it? Julius von Carlyle, as if nothing had happened, asks if they are talking about him. He just felt that somewhere in this place an evil spirit was reborn, so he came with the desire to give him a good beating. The evil spirit itself, the Holy Virgin Mary, and all the other magicians fall silent from the words of Julius von Carlyle, which seems self-satisfied to them. The Holy Virgin Mary screams that this cannot be. He speaks about it so simply, as if he went shopping to the neighbors, because this is not possible. Ordinary people like him are forbidden to enter this place. They shout to Julius von Carlyle that this is actually the evil spirit Gansblad. In response, there is silence. Julius von Carlyle is thinking about something carefree. The magicians shout that it doesn't look like he's interested. They wonder if he hit his head. They can't even be near him. And he's sitting calmly on this evil spirit's shoulder. The evil spirit asks him who he is. He finally speaks and asks for forgiveness for coming to him right after his revival. But they live in peace. He kindly asks the evil spirit if he will sit quietly under the seal again. He asks if he will be so kind as to simply go. These words make the evil spirit be confused. The evil spirit shouts at him that he is Handysblad and twitches, so that Julius von Carlyle falls straight down from his shoulder. The evil spirit summons power and is about to attack, saying how dare he, a small man, give him orders. For this, he will grant him eternal death. The evil spirit attacks and screams at him to die. All this power covers other magicians as well. The entire building itself shakes and collapses into small pieces. The evil spirit finally laughs again and says that the same thing will happen to everyone who contradicts him as to this fool. He laughs even harder and more insidiously. Then the smoke clears and he sees that all the people have been placed in some kind of barrier ball. One coughs, wakes up and immediately thinks that he is dead, but the other realizes that they are not dead and wonders what it was. One asks, what is this? They have never seen anything like this. What is this? Is this really a high-level barrier magic? One asks if everyone is alive. They are surprised that no one is even injured after the terrifying attack of the evil spirit. Julius von Carlyle holds the Holy Virgin Mary in his arms and says that everything is fine and all is well. The evil spirit sees this and wonders how this is possible, in what way. The Holy Virgin Mary, in the arms of Julius von Carlyle, thanks him for saving her, and he tells her that he is very glad. The evil spirit, in shock, asks firstly, why he is alive, and secondly, when did he manage to get it out of his hand? He calls him a fool and asks who he even is. Julius von Carlyle turns to him and says that he just told him. He extends his hand, pointing with his index finger, and says that he is just an ordinary student passing by, reincarnated in another world. A small ball comes out of his finger and slowly, not so quickly, flies towards the evil spirit. He just stands there and waits for it. As soon as the small ball reaches his body, the evil spirit begins to understand what is coming to him and asks him to wait a little. But the next second, there is a huge explosion, accompanied by a scream. The Holy Virgin Mary asks in shock with a trembling voice if he really just used photon. She realizes that the power of his spell is not at all the same as his. The magicians begin to rejoice. How great it is that he defeated the evil spirit with one blow. There was no trace left of him, and that he completely destroyed him. Julius von Carlyle turns around and says that, however, there are still wounded here. All the mages run to the archbishop, and behind them his daughter herself, as if she had just remembered her wounded father. Julius von Carlyle holds out his hand and tells her not to worry. His hand is filled with some kind of magic. He first uses the ability to heal, and then even revive the dead, after which he wakes up. The mages now feel that their wounds have healed, and their fatigue is gone. The father stands up and wonders if he was really dead. The Holy Virgin Mary throws herself into his arms and praises God. He does not understand what is happening and asks what is happening and where is the evil spirit. The magicians shout to him that the evil spirit is no more and that everything is over. The archbishop asks questions about how it ended, how is that possible, and also about resurrecting the dead. That's a lost secret technique. Who was capable of that and how? Behind him stands a smug Julius von Carlyle. Julius von Carlyle says that now that he has sorted out all the problems, in that case he had better go, because it is not good to keep friends waiting. He says goodbye to everyone and simply disappears without a trace, which surprises the magicians. They continue to stand in place. One magician says that this cannot be, and that he left without even giving his name, and they have not yet thanked him for saving them. The archbishop asks who it was just now. His daughter answers him that she does not know this, but he will certainly save the people from trouble. She is sure that he is definitely a messenger of God. At this time, Julius von Carlyle flies to the other end. The Holy Virgin Mary says that he is the one who will save their world from destruction. He lands in the middle of the street. Eliza and Mao Chan are waiting for him at the cinema. Eliza asks him where he went. He runs up to them and asks for forgiveness, says that he has a little business. They are indignant that he just up and leaves at such a moment in the film. Doesn't it seem to him that he has terrible manners? He asks them how the movie ended. They tell him that the enemy boss actually turned out to be the protagonist's father. He asks in surprise if that's true. What an unexpected twist. He'd like to see it. The demon lord chuckles a little. Julius von Carlyle turns to him and asks what happened. She replies that she didn't think that the scene in the movie would be more exciting for him than destroying the evil spirit. Julius von Carlyle asks her if she saw everything. She tells him that she already said that they are connected. Eliza does not understand what they are talking about. Mao Chang tells him, his master, how rudely he dealt with the evil spirit. Julius von Carlyle asks her to stop discussing this already. Eliza thinks, what kind of evil spirit? She smiles happily and asks if the evil spirit is the creature that tried to destroy the entire world 2,000 years ago, and is it true that the hero sent by God defeated it long ago? Mao Chang and Julius von Carlyle exchange glances with a grin. Mao Chan lifts a huge burger full of meat and vegetables. Then he takes a bite with great appetite, saying how delicious it is. Eliza asks her if she liked it, because this place has good reviews, so she wanted to bring her here. She replies that she really liked this so-called hamburger. She corrects her and says that it is a hamburger. Julius von Carlyle, eating potatoes, asks if they knew that those potatoes fried in oil are also very tasty. Julius von Carlyle laughs and tells Eliza that she is so insightful. He honestly admits that he is a reincarnated hero who has passed through time. Eliza laughs and says that is a funny joke for a man with sauce stuck to his mouth. Julius von Carlyle wipes his mouth with a napkin and realizes that she didn't believe him. Of course, even among the Demon Lord's family, it's hard to find anyone who would pass on the secret technique of time travel from generation to generation. Eliza says he likes stories about knights from wartime who made a time jump. He asks again, what time jump? What is it? Eliza asks him if he didn't understand that he was talking about the concept of overcoming time. If he didn't know that in manga and movies this happens often. If he really didn't know. He answers that he really didn't know, because he is far from such things. Today he saw a film for the first time. He thinks to himself that 2,000 years ago there was no such thing. He says that he was very surprised that he could see a moving picture on a huge screen. Mao Chan says she often reads shoujo manga. Julius von Carlyle asks why she suddenly became like her. Julius von Carlyle thanks Eliza for inviting him to the movies today. She just nods at him doubtfully. She thinks to herself that today she was supposed to have a movie date with Julius von Carlyle. Finally, she plucked up the courage and called him. But Mao Chang was nearby. At that moment, she forgot about her. She was dejected by the thought that this didn't look like a date at all. Julius von Carlyle asks her why she suddenly went quiet. Did he say something bad? Mao Jan enjoys his burger and says, "Who knows?" Eliza keeps telling herself that everything can still be fixed, that she has a chance to love him. She gets up from the table and asks where they will go after this. Then someone comes up to them and says, "What a coincidence." It is Sakura who says that they are still connected by the thread of fate. Julius von Carlyle recognizes her. Mao Chan says that she is a princess from the Far East. She asks if it suits her. She answers that now she will study at the same academy as him, this Julius von Carlyle. She transferred to them on an exchange. Julius von Carlyle says how quickly she decided it means that the princess of the eastern country will study at his school. He looks at her guard, Harutora. She is also in uniform. Is she really going to study with them? She replies that she can't lead the princess, but she didn't originally plan to wear this outfit. Julius von Carlyle asks why. Because it suits her very well. Harutora gets angry and says that she will teach him a lesson. He does not understand why, because he praised her. At the table sits Eliza in shock, who sits with Sakura's cute face and Harutora's huge form. She begins to think that there are so many friendly new characters around Julius von Carlyle. And even with special features, in her opinion, Julius von Carlyle turns out to be such a nimble person. Sakura says with a laugh that they will probably have a fun school life. Eliza awkwardly and hesitantly says that she also goes to the same school as Julius von Carlyle. Mao Chan says that's great. Julius von Carlyle has activated a bunch of events, so he will have a fun time. Julius von Carlyle leans back in his chair and says that it is still a pity. He wishes Gaius had come too. The girls ask who Gaius is. Eliza answers that it is the younger brother of Julius von Carlyle. She asks him why his younger brother didn't come here too. He asks the question again and answers that it is just that the tournament is starting very soon. Sakura asks with interest what tournament. The traditional annual 20th martial arts tournament, student versus student, the final tournament, the biggest event in the Colosseum. Julius von Carlyle says that their school holds a martial arts tournament every year at this time of year, where students fight each other. Eliza adds that the final of this tournament is watched by many spectators from other schools, and this tournament determines where some of them can go after graduating from school, so all the students take it seriously. Sakura says she thinks it's very exaggerated. Harutora thinks fondly of the martial arts tournament. Julius von Carlyle says his little brother is generally very serious. They tell him that his little brother will definitely become stronger. At this time, his brother actually trains until he bleeds. He has long hair and his body is much more muscular. Sakawara and Harutora are introduced as new students at their school and are asked to get acquainted. They stand cutely at the board. The boys in the class are delighted. One shouts that this is the first princess of the Eastern Kingdom. Another says how beautiful they are, and with the princess is a sister with huge curves and cat ears. Julius von Carlyle asks Sakura if she's in his class, while behind him Historia angrily yells at her for what she's doing in her academy. She yells at her to get out of here, calling Sakura the village princess. Sakura demonstratively says that the 8th princess attacked him for no reason. Of course she is against it. Sakura asks how much she thinks she had to do to get into the same class as Julius von Carlyle. Historia warns her not to bribe anyone at this academy. Mao Chang watches everything and says that it is not bad as expected from an influential Eastern princess. Eliza stands nearby and wonders since when Mao Chang has been in this class, and is it even allowed for familiars to enter the academy? Sakura tells Julius von Carlyle that she hopes they get along. Historia still doesn't let up and orders the other one to get away from him, calling her a village princess. In a remote corner, a guy sits and says how much he doesn't like it. The teacher stands and says that now she will explain to them the rules of the traditional annual martial arts tournament. Weapons, magic, familiars are allowed in the fight. Students will fight each other one-on-one in personal duels. First, 2 participants from each year of study will be selected as representatives. And now, in the groups of the highest level. Starting from the first grade and ending with the sixth, 12 people will be selected, between whom the final duel will be held. Julius von Carlyle listens and thinks with surprise. So there are even 6-year-olds there. They imagine that from them, the first years of the highest degree, 2 representatives with the best results have already been officially chosen. They name Julius von Carlyle and Gaius. They will be the representatives of the first years. Julius von Carlyle is surprised, and Gaius accepts it calmly. Eliza screams that it's unbelievable, and Mao-chan says that it's natural for the master. Sakura looks on and lovingly says that, as expected of her fiancé. Then Historia interrupts her, screaming that this is her future husband. Then someone raises their hand and shouts that they are protesting. It is that bully who shouts that he understands that Gaius is at the top of the best students in the academy, but the second candidate is just okay, he can't agree with that. That classmate's name is Zekoshi. The teacher wants to explain something to him, but Zekoshi shouts that this is discrimination. There are only 2 vacancies, and they choose candidates without them, so it is not fair. Here, the teacher wants to say that the director of the academy recognized him as a scholarship holder. Here they shout that his relatives simply paid for him. This is just bribery, so they will never agree to this. Mao Chang says that they are fools, that they cannot understand what a hero is capable of. Julius von Carlyle explains to her that they have not seen him in battle. The most they have seen was his battle with Salamander. Julius von Carlyle says that he is not at all against refusing to participate. He is not that interested in this tournament. Zekoshi wonders, is it really that simple? He was elected chairman, and he refuses so easily. Gaius suddenly stands up and tells his brother that he is against it. He will never allow him to refuse to participate. He is participating in this tournament only to defeat him. Julius von Carlyle looks at his brother in surprise, who also does not take his determined gaze off him. Julius von Carlyle smiles and tells the teacher that he will participate after all. She tells him that his decision will help her out a lot. Zekoshi comes close to him and says that it is not going right at all, so he's against it. Julius von Carlyle asks him what he should do, calling him such an egoist. Sakura then smilingly announces that in that case she has a proposal. Everyone turns to her. She asks why they don't all fight him together. In the end, Julius von Carlyle is sitting on a chair in the square, tied with a rope, and in front of him is a crowd of students. Those who have a claim on Julius von Carlyle against him, let them fight. Julius von Carlyle sits on a chair. All the students are ready. Eliza says 30 people against 1 is so scary. Historia says there are too many. She asks if it's dangerous. In addition, Julius von Carlyle is forbidden to use weapons, as well as magic and familiars. He will fight tied up and unable to move. The students are already anticipating and say that they will give him a good beating. Others giggle, thinking that victory is in their hands, and that Princess is called cruel. Julius von Carlyle is asked if he really agrees to fight under such unfavorable conditions. Julius von Carlyle only replies that he doesn't mind. The students become angry at this behavior and immediately attack him. Eliza is scared, Historia is screaming. No matter how strong her darling is, there are too many of them, and besides, he is tied up. Isn't that absurd? The students agree to beat him together. At this time, Mao Chang asks if they can inflict even 1 wound on him. The student swings his arm, wishing him death, calling him the enemy of all men. The student's blows miss Julius von Carlyle, although he himself barely moves. They cannot hit and do not understand what is happening. Sakura stands behind him and yells at Julius von Carlyle that if he understands that there is no battle, if he moves at a speed that is too fast for the eye to perceive. Julius von Carlyle asks if he is not even allowed to move. At this time, the other students are building up their magic power, one at level 15, the other at level 16. They are going to attack with magic from a distance. One shoots a fireball at him, and the other an ice spear. They want to attack him with ice and fire. Julius von Carlyle inhales and then exhales on the attack, which completely destroys their attack. The 2 mages are shocked that he stopped the magic with 1 breath. Girls who also cause magic are angry at the boys. What are they doing? Another uses the ability enhancement and team support. Here comes the beastman. Vorik shouts at them to rely on him. He keeps using muscle enhancement. He begins to attack and shouts that his claws can cut through steel. He swings and hits Julius von Carlyle on the head, but nothing happens to him. Beastman Vork looks at his injured palm and sees that his claws, which he was so proud of, are broken. Julius von Carlyle asks him for forgiveness and says that he has a hard head. Then the swordsman enters the battle. Haratora attacks him with a sword. She shouts that she also wants to become a representative participant, so let him get ready. Julius von Carlyle exhales and says, "Was she here too?" He takes a deep breath and then sneezes loudly. From such a sneeze, all of Haratora's clothes are torn and disappeared. She begins to blush and get even more angry, and Julius von Carlyle asks her for forgiveness for this. She covers her with her hands and screams in panic. All the students' eyes are now directed at her. Sakura says that girls can't just show everyone their naked body. There's no shame. Gaia stands at a distance and watches the battle. Eventually, all the students are lying or sitting tired. Julius von Carlyle asks them all if they are finished with him. Here comes Duzakoshi, angrily speaking about the useless vanguard. Here the students begin to fear his appearance. They warn him that he is really strong. Daisakoshi shows his ring on his finger and says that he didn't want to use it, but it's his special move. It's a cursed ring, enhanced with magical power sealed to his family. The students shout at him not to use the cursed ring, or he will destroy his body. Zakoshi shouts that he doesn't care what happens to his body. He will crush Julius von Carlyle. Julius von Carlyle sits in amazement and admiration. Zakoshi says that he gave up his life energy to summon it, now he can't take it back. So let the idiot look at him. A level 48 flame golem appears behind him. The students are shocked by the level number. Another warns that he will not be able to control it. Dizakoshi asks Julius von Carlyle how he likes his strongest familiar. He is sure that he will crush Julius von Carlyle into dust. Julius von Carlyle raises his foot and slams his foot on the ground, causing the entire ground beneath the golem to deform and the golem to fall down. All the students are in shock, including the girls. Dizakoshi is already crying completely, saying that his golem was destroyed. One student says he took a step and broke the ground beneath his feet, and with one attack he subdued a golem. They feel they can't defeat it. Julius von Carlyle turns and asks if anyone else has any complaints. The girls are so happy for him and screaming, saying how cool it is. Zakoshi is still crying and grieving for his flame golem. Sakura says that since he showed everyone his abilities, it can be said that no one will approach him for a while. Mao Chang says that it is as expected of a princess to have thought things through that far. Gaius addresses Julius von Carlyle. He turns around. He asks that it seems that even now he did not fight seriously. He will not lose in the tournament before he gets against him. Gaius confidently says that only he can defeat his brother. Julius von Carlyle smiles warmly and is surprised by his words. Late at night, playing chess, Mao Chang asks the hero to tell him why he has been so happy since lunch. Julius von Carlyle asks if that is really true. She asks if the battle against 30 people was really that fun. He replies that it was just fun. She asks then why he is acting like that. He replies with a wide smile that it's because of his younger brother. He thinks that Gaius turned out to be such a cutie. Mao Chang asks in surprise if he is also after boys. He answers that of course not. That is not what he meant. He says that they never had brotherly fights. Then he adds that he never had any brothers, so maybe it's not surprising now. She says that his younger brother is in his shadow. He tries hard and tries his best to surpass him. Julius von Carlyle says that until now no one had ever challenged the hero directly to his face, and that is why he was very glad of such a brotherly squabble. Mao Chan says that this is how blood relatives they are. She asks, "Is this a family?" He says yes. After all, she fulfilled his wish. He thanks her. Mao Chang smiles, sighs, and says that if he is happy, then so is she. Julius von Carlyle asks her, of course. He has defeated her, but why does she do so much for him? She answers him that it can be said that in the last battle with him, special bonds were formed between them. He asks what kind of bonds these are. She replies that it is something like a fight between hooligans, after which they become friends. Julius von Carlyle then understands everything. Mao Chang smiles and says that maybe these feelings are close to what he feels for his brother. She says that you can call it love. Julius von Carlyle is surprised by such words. Mao Chang sharply and slyly shouts that while she is talking to him, she should get check and beat him at chess. Julius von Carlyle didn't even understand how it happened. Mao Chang is happy and shouts through laughter that he has no way out now and that she has defeated the hero in chess. She asks him if he is giving up, because he is giving up. If he starts begging for mercy, then she will wait one more move. Julius von Carlyle sighs and says he'll go here with this, and then he's in checkmate. Mao Chang realizes that she's lost in reverse. She asks him if he lured her king and planned this from the start. She screams that he is simply too strong, unmatched even in board games. She says that he is a cheater, so it is not fair. She is already rolling on the floor and hysterical that she wanted to win at least once. Julius von Carlyle tells her that she shouldn't be so upset. She only lost at chess once. Here he addresses her with special seriousness. He talks about that conversation. He also loves her and is grateful to her. Mao Chang is surprised and calls him a hero again. She stands up abruptly and asks him to fight again. Julius von Carlyle tells her that she has lost 100 times in a row. Does he really still want to play? He thinks that she is not learning anything at all. She screams that she will not forgive him if he runs away. Mao Chang tells him to give her a uniform next time. He asks if she will be happy with the victory then. She laughs loudly and says that the main thing is to win. He notes that now she looked very much like the Demon Lord. The day of the tournament has arrived. The arena is full of people, musicians are playing drums, and the participants are waiting for their turn. Eliza looks at the list and asks if this is the league table. Sakiwara says that Julius von Carlyle is at the bottom of the bracket and will need to go through 4 battles to win. Haratora is standing nearby and thinks that she would like to participate. Historia says she is worried about her darling. She hopes he wins like his wife. Eliza is angry. She asks her if she is cheating on Gaius. She broke up with Julius von Carlyle. She scolds, calling her an elf commoner. Maybe she will not interfere with the love of noble people. Here Mao Chang says that it looks like she will only be able to see the confrontation between the owner and his younger brother in the final. She thinks that there is quite an exciting lineup of opponents. Someone says that for some reason he started to worry. Mao Chang tells the girls that there is no need to worry about the master. He is probably sitting somewhere quiet and sharpening his fangs. In one of the rooms are Gaius and Julius von Carlyle. Gaius excitedly calls for his brother, while Julius von Carlyle only sleeps soundly, drooling. Kyujiro Sakura is the first princess of the Northern Kingdom after Julius von Carlyle saved her from night robbers. She fell in love with him. She has a calm character, speaks with an accent of the Eastern Kingdom. Height 141 centimeters, weight 35 kilograms. Dimension 67 by 52 by 67. Her favorite food is selected sushi. Everyone in the arena is waiting for the fighters, and in the locker room are Julius von Carlyle and Gaius. Gaius irritably asks him how long he is going to sleep, and he talks nonsense in his sleep and talks about the goose's eyes. Gaius is pulled by Julius von Carlyle and shouts at him to stop sleeping and get up already because the tournament is about to start. He doesn't wake up and asks for 5 more minutes. He keeps waking up and shouting that he said the same thing last time. Julius von Carlyle says in his sleep that lately Mao Chang has not been letting him sleep at all at night, which is why he is not getting enough sleep. So he asks to let him sleep a little more. His brother Gaius wonders if that beauty Mao Chang really spends time with him all night long. He shouts at his brother how shameless he is. He doesn't understand why. Gaius shouts that in any case, if he oversleeps, then he will be disqualified. Then someone eavesdrops on them. The door opens. Someone comes into the room and then demonstratively asks to be allowed to enter. He says he just wanted to come in and say hello. Gaius asks him what he wants, who he is. The man, big and heavy, holding a bottle, says he didn't think he'd sleep so soundly just before the match and then laughs. Gaius doesn't understand what kind of spectacle this is. This student says that, after all, the rumors turn out to be true. There is a disgrace in the Carrere family. Did he really win the selection by deception? Gaius starts to get angry. He shouts that he doesn't know who he is. But outsiders are not allowed to enter this room. He just laughs and then opens the very bottle that he was holding in his hand. He brings the liquid to his mouth and drinks it all, staining his mouth and face in general. He wipes his mouth with his forearm. Gaius does not understand at all what is happening. This man breaks this bottle with his bare hands and clenches his palms. Gaius waits to see what he will do. Julius von Carlyle is still sleeping. This student holds out a lump of glass into his palm and says why they are so impudent that they don't know his face. Gaius gapes in surprise at his behavior. Julius von Carlyle is still drooling and sleeping peacefully. The girls are sitting in the arena. Eliza asks if the match hasn't started yet. Historia asks when she can see her darling fight. Sakura says that actually her darling. She's talking about her future husband's fight. The girls start arguing again, at which point Mao Chang lets a smaller version of himself into the hallway to look for Julius von Carlyle. Mao Chan walks and mutters to herself. Forgive the girls. She will use body division and see how things are going. She's a familiar who is so worried about the master. She walks along the empty corridor. She reaches the locker room of Julius von Carlyle and Gaius, opens the door and asks how the hero is feeling there. Then she sees that student grabbing Julius von Carlyle by the collar and shouting how long he will sleep like a tanuki. He came here to say hello to him. So he should stop sleeping already and get up. He says that his brother is a fool who does not know good manners. Julius von Carlyle says everything. Chomson says that he can't eat anymore. Then he gets even more furious and asks menacingly if he still hasn't woken up. Mao Chan looks on and says that he seems to be not all right. She wonders what kind of muscular fool he is, how cruel he is. Gaius shouts at him to let his brother go because the tournament has not started. Julius von Carlyle turns to Gaius in a dream and offers to eat together in peace. There's an awkward silence as the senior says that this is the first time he's been humiliated like that. He raises his fist and says that he'll probably make sure he's out before the first round. Mao Chan thinks to herself that the hero's body is covered in armor made of magical power. If it is hit, then in her opinion, this macho's fist will not remain unharmed. Well, she doesn't really care. Gaius asks if he has forgotten the promise he gave him, if he is going to fall to this guy before he fights him. He shouts that it cannot be, brother. He is disappointed in Julius. At which point Julius von Carlyle's face wrinkles, and then he suddenly opens his eyes. He immediately stands up and shouts at him not to dare to make such a mistake about his brother and waves his hand. Gaius and Mao Chan stand aside in surprise. Julius von Carlyle freezes with his hand raised and does not understand what is happening. He asks Gaius and Mao Chan what they are doing here. They remain silent and do not answer. He lets go of his hand and says that it seems like there was a martial arts tournament today. He was finally able to wake up. Something falls from the ceiling. Julius von Carlyle decides to take a look. He looks up and sees legs sticking out and wonders what it is. Was this object here? The host starts the show. She addresses the audience and says that they have probably been waiting for a long time. Today she, the idol of Meimei Academy, will explain the situation. She calls 12 people chosen from each year to the stage. She praises the first one. She talks about his style. It is a balance of magic and sword. He is a member of the Executive Bureau of the Student Council. He is often called by the great nickname Prince of Smile. This is a third-year student, the magical swordsman Niersen. Havato. This guy has half of his hair blonde and the other half black. He thanks the host and everyone else for such words. Then comes the next one with a unique funnel hairdo. The musical instrument he carries on his back plays the melody of death. This is the performer on the battlefield. A fourth-year student, the wandering poet Lester Dramafaden. The next one to come out is a beastman. He is a tiger. He is a boxer who speaks the language of fists. A tiger of the beastman race. His style is simply a rough fight. He will not let others get away with it. He is confident. He clenches his fist, saying that victory is in his hands. This is a sixth-year student, a brawler, Nijuka Taiga. The next one to come out is a seemingly very calm man in a black uniform. This is a master of various martial arts, the Avenger of 10,000 Battles, a second-year student, Kung Fu fighter Takamichi. It turns out the next one, even in armor, his face is not visible. Those who touch him get injured. His entire body is protected by armor. He is a damned hurricane of pitch darkness. A student of the 6th year of study, the Dark Knight, Benedict Freddy. Next comes a little boy. This is the youngest participant. At the age of 10, his magical power surpasses anyone by an order of magnitude. He is a rapidly developing magician, a 5th-year student, a magician of the highest class, Karaton Garebs. The boy sadly says that he wants to go home as soon as possible. Finally, a girl contestant comes out on a panda with a snake and a bird. No matter what wild animal attacks, they become friends, and they start working for her, the Amazon of hundreds of animals. This is a second-year student, the mistress of animals, Guillermo Robinson. She winks and says that she has no outcasts. The next one to come out is a tall blonde man. His katana is a magic sword that absorbs blood, a silver swordsman nomad. This is a third-year student samurai, Kogara Sumaru. The next one comes out in a dark cloak. His face and body are not visible at all. He is a complete mystery. She asks a rhetorical question. How high are the abilities hidden under this robe, of course? No one answers this question. It is a fourth-year student, a faceless ghost, Wang J. Shudo. Finally, the next one is announced. He comes out in a suit and patent leather shoes. He is the elite of their academy, comes from a famous family. He is participating here for the first time, and there are many hopes for him. All the girls start screaming and squealing with love and joy at the sight of this student. This is first-year student Julius von Carlyle. He says nothing and does not introduce himself. After this, his older brother is mentioned. Julius von Carlyle says, offended, that he was introduced too carelessly. Does it not seem so to others? Here the host immediately introduces the next one. Finally, the participant who attracts special attention in this tournament, a man nicknamed an explosive train shooting meat shells, possessing incomparable strength. All the viewers are eagerly awaiting the student's appearance. The host says that it is a fifth-year student, Rodrug, but no one comes on stage. She tries to call him again, but doesn't understand what's going on. He doesn't come out. Maybe something happened. Someone comes up and speaks. The presenter listens and says, "How is that possible? It can't be." She tells this person that she understood him. She finally tells all the viewers that she has now received information. Participant Roderick is currently in the locker room and seems to be in no condition to fight, so he is eliminated. All viewers are shocked by this. The host says that in this case, if you refer to the tournament table, participant Julius von Carlyle automatically wins the first round of the tournament. Julius von Carlyle is surprised that it is about him. The audience is not happy. They are asking questions. How is it that the contender for victory is eliminated in the first round? What happened to this Rodrug? Did someone really beat him up? They are outraged that such a mess is happening from the first round. Julius von Carlyle sighs and wonders if it is only his battle that is being delayed. He is not happy about it. Astoria says, wow, defeating an enemy without fighting, as expected of her darling. That's incredible. Sakura nudges her and says that luck is also part of the ability, as expected of her fiancé. Mao Chang realizes that his opponent in the first round was most likely that same guy. That's right. All participants are serious. The audience is eagerly awaiting the battles. The host announces that now all the participants are definitely here. These 11 people, the best of the best, she announces that they are starting a martial arts tournament. Isurus stands on the upper floors and smiles sweetly. Another approaches him and asks if this pathetic man is really fit to be the Demon King. He giggles and says not to make him repeat it several times. They have been waiting for someone like Julius von Carlyle for a long time. Batman asks Isurus to stop joking. Another one next to him says that he does not want to serve such a boy. Isurus sighs and says that. However, Gong, who said the same thing as they, fell by his hand. He asks if they have forgotten about it already. He says that they still can't believe that Gon was defeated. Isurus asks if he means to say that they weren't convinced. Isurus turns to them and asks if that man wasn't convinced either. People don't understand what he's talking about. Another man enters the room, and next to him, numerous skeletons are crawling around the floor in a rage. Everyone is scared. This man with a little gray hair and glasses says that he hid his aura. He thinks that Isurus is quite good. This man enters them. The skeletons were only part of his aura. All of Isurus's subordinates are scared and avoid them. One asks, what kind of magical power is this? Which is at the perfect level, an unknown curse aura spread throughout the room. The feeling of him clawing at their hearts, a frightening feeling coming from a being that is an order of magnitude superior to them, the demons. They wonder, could it be that Isurus welcomes him to his academy, calling him an evil spirit who is a dragon or his name is Dragon? All the demons open their mouths in shock. At that very moment, they fall to their knees before this evil spirit dragon. One finally understands. So this man is the evil spirit. This is the superior race, which 2,000 years ago almost destroyed their entire species. Have they really been reborn? The dragon sighs and says what a difficult situation this is. He tells the demons that they can raise their heads. The dragon comes closer to Isurus and says that means that the child is the hero who defeated Gonda's blood. Isurus confirms this. Those demons are even more shocked. Has the evil spirit already been defeated? This is the first time they hear about it. The dragon says that the evil spirit went to sleep immediately after waking up. However, Gansblood is the weakest among them, the evil spirits, so he is not going to sympathize with him. He thinks that it is such a shame for a demon. However, a child single-handedly defeated the evil spirit. He is so annoyed that such stupid rumors are spreading everywhere. Then the demons tell the evil spirit to wait, and that he can leave this child to them. Isurus addresses the dragon standing at the window. He tells him that Julius von Carlyle's power is comparable to that of a god. No matter how strong the evil spirits are, he doubts that he can defeat him. Here the demons are surprised. They ask Isurus what he is saying. The dragon turns sharply towards Isurus. He looks at him angrily and does not look away. The demons are afraid. Has he really angered the lord of the evil spirit? The other asks the dragon to calm his anger. Suddenly someone knocks with a fist. It is the dragon who lightly taps Isurus on the shoulder and says that he knows how to incite other people and that he's a funny guy. Isurus agrees with this. The demons are even more shocked by this turn of events and unexpectedness. The dragon turns away and says that in any case, he came for this very reason. He is going to kill that child, and they will go see the sights of the city, and if they interfere with him, he promises to kill them. Isurus tells him that, however, their school's tournament is going on right now, so... The dragon says that he will do everything elegantly, so they shouldn't worry. The dragon also adds that, however, he will give the winner of this tournament a wonderful gift from himself, so let them wait impatiently for the end of the tournament. He leaves, closes the door, and there is silence. Isurus looks at the door for a long time, then sighs, thinking that these evil spirits are so linear, and then smiles sharply. He thinks that the dragon can become food for their future demon king. He is 100% sure of it. The host says that she thinks it's time to start the second round of the tournament. All the spectators shout and cheer. At this time, Julius von Carlyle is enjoying his food with gusto. He eats noodles with chopsticks and at the same time bites into a pie with filling, most likely meat. He eats and says that it is delicious. He is hungry after waking up. On the table he has crayfish, chicken, and rice. And next to her, Mao Chan is eating ice cream and asking how he can eat so much before a match. Gaius sighs, scratches his head, and calls him his brother in a sad and tired voice. Mao Chan looks up from her ice cream. There is a spot on her face. She happily says that the fun is just beginning. Royal Academy Ein, a martial arts tournament. The finals between the 12 participants who advanced due to past victories were about to begin. It was already written that Roderick was eliminated. Julius von Carlyle was advancing without a fight, which raised many questions. The second ones are Kotori Maru and Lester. The third ones are Gaius and Takamichi. The fourth ones are Guillermo and Karaton. While Julius von Carlyle was walking down the hallway, someone called him a brat. Julius von Carlyle immediately turned around. A thrown egg was flying towards him. He easily caught the egg and said that it was dangerous. Mao Chan only manages to turn to the other side during this time. Mao Chan asks him what it is. He sniffs it and resists, saying that it is a rotten egg. The boy who threw the egg at him is angry that nothing happened. The little boy is throwing words and swearing at him. He has black hair and a haircut like that, Roderick. Mao Chan realizes that it is some child. She asks Julius von Carlyle if he knows him. He replies that he does not know and warns the boy not to throw food at people. He shouts at him not to pretend to be smart. He declares that he defeated his brother unfairly. Julius von Carlyle does not understand what other brother. Then someone comes up to them, calls the boy Dominic, and asks him to stop. The boy turns around excitedly. Julius von Carlyle looks on in bewilderment. The boy calls him Nelson Senpai, the man whose hair is half blonde and the other side dark. says that you can't accuse a person without evidence. Julius von Carlyle understands and remembers this man, who is also competing in the tournament. Dominic does not listen and says that it is too strange for his brother to be defeated before the fight. Mao Chang does not understand what fight and why before him. Then she understands and says, "So that's it, Dominic." It turns out he's that jock's younger brother. Last time, Julius von Carlyle, without even realizing it, defeated his opponent Roderick with one blow. Julius von Carlyle asks what other Mussulman. Mao Chang explains to him that he was asleep, so he doesn't remember. Dominic shouts that his brother is very strong. He promised him that he would win today. It's too weird that he didn't even come to the fight. He twitches, calls Julius von Carlyle a scoundrel, and says that everything is clear with him. Nelson pulls him away and asks him to calm down. Nelson says his brother is a terrific fighter, but he doesn't think Julius von Carlyle would do that. Julius von Carlyle scratches his head and sheepishly thanks him for saying that. Dominic shouts at Nelson what he is talking about. Whose side is he on? He laughs and says that appearances are deceiving. He suddenly takes out his sword and says that, however, he is very curious to know. He approaches Julius von Carlyle with the sword. He points the tip of his sword at him and says that he is curious to find out how strong he really is. This Nelson's gaze changes. He looks at Julius von Carlyle with confident eyes. Even the little boy and Mao Chang are surprised by such an action. Suddenly, the chapter begins with Nelson having a sword blade thrust into his head right in the middle, right in the forehead. He feels like his whole body is being stabbed with swords from different sides several times. He screams in pain. He lets out a silent cry. In reality, he is still standing with his sword right in front of Julius von Carlyle in the same pose, although sweat is pouring down his face. He tries to scream. He breathes heavily and does not understand what just happened. Is this really a vision? He looks at Julius von Carlyle, who stands calmly in front of him and smiles warmly. He begins to understand that this is all the aura of this man. Nelson smiles demonstratively with an exhale and begins to put his sword back in the case, which offends the boy Dominic again. He again becomes hysterical and asks why he is putting his sword back, because he knows perfectly well that it will not cost him anything to defeat this impudent fellow. Nelson puts his hand on the boy's head, strokes Dominic, and says that perhaps he will retreat this time. Silently, he says that because if he goes on the attack first, he risks being killed instantly. The boy becomes disillusioned and hysterical. Julius von Carlyle smiles contentedly at this outcome. He extends his hand and asks him to let him introduce himself again. His name is Nelson Havard, a third grader, and it just so happens that he was chosen as his opponent in the second round. Julius von Carlyle extends his hand and shakes it. Nelson says that he will have to give up that right, however, so it seems he has lost before their battle has even begun. He laughs awkwardly, nervously. Julius von Carlyle doesn't answer. Nelson turns around, takes Dominic with him, and says that he will definitely come to cheer for him from the stands. He tells Dominic to go already, and that it's time for them to go like this. Julius von Carlyle is left with his hand outstretched, wondering what just happened. Mao Chang tells him that he is a very nice young man, which, it must be said. Julius von Carlyle says that it turns out that he has won again without even starting the fight. And in the second round, a technical victory is declared for Julius von Carlyle. At this time, others are fighting in the arena, blow after blow. Gaius flies away from the blow and slows himself down with the help of his arms and legs. Third round 1. The first battle, Gaius versus Takemichi, who is a master of several martial arts, a master of kung fu. Takemichi stands calmly in place, his fists steaming from the impact. Gaius sighs and thinks that he is quite strong. The host encourages the audience and shouts, "Let them just look at what Gaius is doing. He has already used a magic technique." Gaius says that he promised. He promised his brother that they would meet in the final with him. He takes a step towards Takemichi. He flies the bird straight towards him and shouts that he will fight for this and orders his familiar to go only forward. He is determined to win. In the final round, Takemichi is eliminated and Gaius wins. The students continue to battle and the strongest win. The presenter shouts that passions are heating up, and here come the next participants. She announces that they are starting their long-awaited semi-final. The first battle of this stage will be between Julius von Carlyle and Lester. Julius von Carlyle comes out on stage with a smile and thinks that he will finally fight. At least he will warm up. Eliza shouts to Julius von Carlyle, supporting him with all her might. She has a fan with Julius von Carlyle's face and a headband. Historia is indignant about where this girl with all these trinkets came from. Sakura looks at her and says that she even feels uneasy. The crowd is not particularly jubilant. They are wondering if Julius von Carlyle is really as strong as they say. He has not yet entered the field since the beginning of the competition. They do not think that he is really that strong. Mao Chan and his brother Gaius are standing at the door of the Karain. Gaius looks at him with stern eyes full of expectation. Julius von Carlyle smiles at him. Julius von Carlyle begins to warm up as he said. Up until now, he had done nothing but watch his little brother win. Now it was his turn to watch him. He sat down on one leg and extended the other, stretching the inner muscles of his legs. Lester takes his musical instrument out of its case. Julius von Carlyle sees it. He pays attention to it. He is interested. Lester takes out his guitar and laughs in his face. Lester's hair is funny. His bangs look like an elongated bird's nest. Julius von Carlyle looks at him with childish admiration and open mouth. His cheeks even turn red. He stops warming up. Lester begins to play, holding the strings with one hand and strumming with the other. He says that he is incredibly lucky today as he looks at it, since his opponent is the scion of those famous Carlyles. Here he is in person. Lester keeps playing his music and shouting that Julius von Carlyle is the same Carlyle who famously dropped out of school. Julius von Carlyle stands still and only agrees with his words, the words of his opponent. Julius von Carlyle sincerely wonders if Lester is planning to fight with a musical instrument. He thinks to himself, wow, this is the first time in 2,000 years that he has seen something like this. Lester laughs and says that it is not just a musical instrument. He shouts to the whole arena that this guitar is magic. It amplifies his magical abilities. With its help, he will beat him in one go. He calls on everyone to look at him. Before them is the greatest performance in history, in his opinion, of course. The host tells the audience that Lester decides to attack his opponent with his musical skills. Who knows? Maybe this unusual approach will lead him to victory. Mao Chan says it's interesting that he uses a guitar as a weapon. Nelson sits in the audience and says how much applause. He understands that the audience is delighted. Dominic next to him is still hurt and angry. The host shouts that it is time to begin the battle. Lester, as soon as he hears this, immediately uses a super fast attack, moving forward. He starts playing his guitar with all his might, while simultaneously swaying not only his head, but his entire body. At this time, Julius von Carlyle stands and reflects that sound. In fact, consists of waves generated by the vibrational movement of air particles. He realizes that this phenomenon is called sound waves, so Lester's magic lies in creating them or amplifying them. In perceiving sound waves, they are assisted by 3 semicircular canals located behind the eardrum, and in order to defeat an opponent, Lester tries to strike the eardrum, namely to break through it. All the spectators do not understand what this sound is. Everyone complains and grabs their ears. They scream that it is too much. Eliza is worried about Julius von Carlyle. Lester screams that no matter how much he trains, he won't be able to pump up his eardrum. It won't last long. So let him see the power of Lester's music. It will be the last thing he hears in his life. Julius von Carlyle, without surprise or emotion, cleans his ear with his finger and says that it was quite okay. Not that loud. Lester was shocked by such a response. He did not understand at all why he was alive and well. He was so surprised that his eyes almost popped out. He asks hysterically, in what sense is it not so loud, and what about his eardrums? Julius von Carlyle pretends not to understand anything and says, what eardrums? He says that they are located abnormally deep, so that even water pressure is no problem for them. He can dive to 100,000 meters, and even then, everything will be fine with them. Lester is shocked and horrified at what this is. Julius von Carlyle says that while it's fun to attack with sound waves, maybe he should try it too. He tells him, scared, that he doesn't even have an instrument with him. Julius von Carlyle begins to clear his throat to tune his voice. He says that at least he has a voice. Lester waits in horror for what will happen, but suddenly Julius von Carlyle begins to sing loudly. This shocked not only the viewers and Lester, but also the presenter herself. He sings with a cute face. But everyone just suffers simply because he can't sing at all. Everyone feels bad because he sings crookedly. His voice makes people suffer. These sound waves affect Lester. He cries and realizes that his voice is more terrible than any magic. In the end, Lester was completely floored. The presenter cleans her ears and says what passions are going on here just now in front of all the spectators. Julius von Carlyle easily dealt with his opponent, skillfully taking advantage of his inability to sing. Lester is lying in a fit, foaming at the mouth. The host proudly announces that Lester is defeated. She says that the victory goes to Julius von Carlyle. Julius von Carlyle says, "Wow, that worked." He thinks he has a talent for music. The audience shouts that it was a terrible song. They send Julius von Carlyle. The presenter agrees and says that in some ways, it really was very cruel. The girls Julius von Carlyle loves are quiet after this song. Mao Chong says that it seems that even the strongest warrior in history has his shortcomings. Nelson thinks it's a good thing they didn't have to fight each other. Next to him, Dominic is still suffering from his ears. Julius von Carlyle tells Malchon that maybe he should take up music seriously. He plans to start his own band. Malchon asks him not to even think about it. Eventually, the decisive battle came.